Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto had wound up on a team with Kiba and Hinata part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Naruto adjusted his forehead protector, trying very hard to forget about what just happened. He and Sasuke had an unspoken agreement to never ever bring up what just happened again. Sakura, who was sitting next to Naruto and his bitter enemy, who really didn't care much about his hatred. Iruka walked into the classroom, tapping some papers together in his hand. He raised an eyebrow at the somewhat beaten-up Naruto, but shook his head as he realized what he thought was bruises were just his eyes playing tricks on him. Beginning today, all of you are real ninjas. But you are still merely rookie, genin, stressing the word to let them know they had a lot to prove. The hard part has just started. Now you will soon be assigned duties by the village, so today we will be creating the 3-man teams, with the Jounin sensei. Naruto resisted his chin on his hand. I hope I'm on the same team as Sakura and then anyone else, except Sasuke. He glanced at the people on his left. Sakura had her eyes dreamily checking out Sasuke, who in turn looked bored with it all. Iruka continued, you will follow that sensei's instructions as you complete the assigned duties. He held up the papers for the class to look at, though with the fine writing only a few could actually see it well enough to read the teams. We tried to balance each team's strength. However, he smiled at his favorite student. Someone was determined to mess with us even in graduation. Naruto beamed. Had to go out causing one last headache, didn't you? Iruka called out all the teams. Naruto paid half attention. He didn't care about the other teams as much as he knew he should have, but he was focusing on 2 names, his own, and the girl next to him. Next, Team 7. Iruka paused, flipping through the pages. Naruto glanced up long enough to see the ink blots on the page. Haruno Sakura. Naruto perked up. Aburame Shino, Uchiha Sasuke, under Kakashi. Hoo-hoo! Sakura shouted. Naruto let out a sigh, and slumped in his chair, figured I wouldn't be so lucky. Iruka continued, ignorant of, or simply choosing to ignore, Naruto's displeasure at Sakura being on a different team, let alone with her idol, teammate, Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, and Uzumaki Naruto. Seriously? Someone said from the back, that's balanced? Naruto looked back. It was Kiba who had spoken. Iruka sighed. I said we tried. Naruto threw a wrench in the works to say the least. Bah, he said contemptibly, but he grinned at Naruto, or possibly bared his teeth. Looked more friendly, but Naruto wasn't too sure. His dog, Akamaru, was sitting on the desk in front of Kiba. Naruto could tell that at least the dog was happy to be on his team. You 3 will be under Kurenai, Iruka finished. He looked at Naruto and swiped at his nose. Naruto recognized it as his see me after class signal. Yeah, I get it, Naruto thought. He put his chin on the desk, and as he glanced about the room, his quick glance at Sasuke didn't reveal anything new. Sakura, on the other hand, was giggling. She looked very happy about her arrangement. He rolled his head over and saw a few other classmates, but one stuck out from the rest of the class, mostly because she was very red. Hinata was focusing very intently on her fingers, which were pushing together in a nervous twitch. He'd seen her use it a lot. Of course, when he mentioned to anyone else, they had no idea what he was talking about. Iruka ran through the last few names and said, all right. Class dismissed to meet with your new teachers. Everyone got up except Naruto. Kiba heartily pounded him on his back. Hey, wake up. Time to move. Naruto coughed and looked at the wild man, who had his canine partner situated in his jacket. Iruka had already approached Naruto and waved Kiba off toward the door. Wait outside a moment, I gotta talk to Naruto. Naruto sighed. Lecture? Nope, just wanted to explain something. Iruka said calmly, sitting down in front of Naruto. Got all the lecturing done already. What? Naruto said, leaning back in his chair and placing his feet on the table. Iruka batted the feet off, making Naruto temporarily lose his balance. We were having trouble placing you. He paused for a moment. Well, I was. Naruto only tilted his head quizzically. It's because of your extra passenger, he added. A few of the Jounin out there are more like Mizuki than me. I wanted to make sure you got a good one. That, and it was hard to add you. We had already decided the teams. So why with Kiba and Hinata? Naruto asked. Well, Hinata's a nice girl, and Kiba, well, he's sometimes a jerk, but he's generally a good guy, Iruka said with somewhat of a half smile on his face, and will hopefully help keep you out of trouble, he thought, then added, and I trust Kurenai, so I don't think she'll treat you unfairly. Naruto nodded emphatically, happy that his now former mentor had put so much effort into placing him into a good team. Okay, not get out there. Your team is probably waiting on you. Naruto ran outside and looked down the halls. He ran toward Kiba, who was waiting. That was quicker than expected, he said, smirking. Expected him to lecture you quite a bit. Me too, Naruto admitted. Naruto turned around. He had ran past the shy Hinata without realizing. Oh. Hey, he said, smiling. Sorry to keep you both waiting. It's fine, she said, looking down. I hope we can work together. Naruto turned toward Kiba. So where's our leader? Kiba's smirk disappeared. Ain't here yet, he said. The dog in his jacket let out a bark. I think she's coming. Naruto looked down the hall. I don't see anyone. After a couple of seconds passed, Hinata silently nodded agreement. Neither can I, but I can smell something. Glad to see your senses live up to your family name, a female voice said from behind them. They turned around and saw a tall woman standing next to Hinata. She smiled at them. I'm Kurenai. She placed a hand on Hinata's shoulder and looked at the three of them. Let's go somewhere else, shall we? With that, she silently led the way to another building and brought them to the roof. She leaned against the railing. She indicated the mountain that they all lived under. The stone-carved faces looking over the village. I suppose I don't need to ask you all if you know who those people are, do I? She turned toward Naruto. One of you got a great lecture from Iruka about them. And I'd assume the rest of you did too. Kiba sat down and let Akamaru out of his jacket. Yeah, the great Hokages. Hinata said in a soft voice barely above a whisper, the Hokages are our leaders. Some like the fourth laid down their lives to protect the village. They are the best ninja this village has to offer. Kurenai nodded appreciatively. Very good, Hinata. I can see why you got great scores on written exams. What about them, though? Naruto asked, crossing his arms. Well, their goals were to protect the village, or to learn, and so became great leaders like our current Hokage. What about you? What are your goals? Naruto pointed up at the faces. I want to be the greatest Hokage ever. A small smirk appeared on Kurenai's face. Well, hopefully others won't get the idea to smear graffiti over your face when it gets up there. She turned toward Kiba. Indifferent to Naruto's blank look of shock, she didn't dismiss his claim like many others had, outwardly at least. Kiba thought for a moment. I think I want to be the strongest as well. He looked at Naruto to gauge his indirect challenge. I want to raise Akamaru into the best nin dog there is. Kurenai laughed sweetly. It seems we already have a bit of a rivalry going here. She looked at Hinata, who immediately turned red. And now, Hinata, it's your turn. She began to push her fingers together in a nervous twitch. Naruto turned toward Kiba to see if he was indeed seeing it. Kiba shrugged at Naruto's unspoken question. She glanced toward Naruto, who had brought his attention back to her. I guess to him. Kurenai smiled. To get stronger as well, right? She said, folding her arms and resting her chin in her hand. Hinata looked up at her and slowly nodded. Great, then all three of you already have something in common. You all want to get stronger. Kiba laughed. Of course we do. Which leads me to my next question, Kurenai said, standing upright. How do you go about that? Kiba stared at her for a moment before looking back at the others. Training? He said. It seemed obvious enough. Kurenai shook her head. Yes, that's true, but that's not where your strength will be. It's in your team. She indicated the Hokages. Every Hokage got where he was because he had friends he could rely on. So our first task, starting tomorrow and for the next few days, we are going to be training together and living together. Naruto looked at her. I understand the training, but why living together? Kurenai folded her arms. If you three can't live and work together, then there's no purpose in me training you guys. She sighed and walked up to Naruto and put her hands on his shoulder. I really want all of you to be my students. Iruka spoke very highly of all of you, but if you can't live together, then you can't fight together. Naruto nodded, and Kurenai looked about. Kiba's expression told her he understood. She supposed he had experience with making sure he had a suitable partner in Akamaru. She then turned toward Hinata, who was staring at her fingers, red as a beet. She then looked at Naruto. Okay, meet at the gate tomorrow, at 1 o'clock 1300 hours. Naruto nodded and she let go of him, and he started walking away. She caught Hinata by her shoulder. Please wait, I'd like to go meet with your father tonight. Hinata nodded. Okay, she said quietly. Kurenai's lips twisted into a small smile. You're as shy as Iruka said, she said, wrapping her arm around Hinata. I know it's putting you on the spot, but how about we get dinner tonight? Before going to your father's? You want to? Hinata said with some surprise in her voice. Of course I do, Kurenai said reassuringly. I do plan on sitting down with all of you during the next couple days, but I feel like us girls should spend a little more time together. Hinata nodded, and for the first time Kurenai had seen her smiled. Kurenai led the way to a local restaurant. Hinata thought she knew the owner's kid but couldn't be sure. They sat down and Kurenai waved away the menu. She turned to Hinata. They have very good red bean soup here. I believe Irika said that was your favorite? Yes, Hinata said. As soon as she realized her voice was raised, she began to blush and look down at her hands. Great, Kurenai said just a little bit louder, smiling at her. She looked at the waiter. 2 shriokos, a small bit of sake for me and water for her. He nodded and ran back to relay the order. Oh, and some pickled radishes. The server turned and nodded with a smile. She turned toward Hinata and placed her elbows on the table. So Hinata, I know a bit about you, but I want to hear about you from you. I don't know what you mean, Hinata said, looking around the restaurant, and seeing that indeed not everyone was staring at them because of their outbursts, looked back at Kurenai. What are your interests, hobbies, wishes? Kurenai said as the waiter returned with drinks. Well, Hinata said, taking the cup in her hands. It was cool to the touch as she ran her fingers about the rim of the cup, and she watched the water swirl inside. I like pressing flowers. That's interesting, Kurenai said, pouring herself a bit of sake. How often do you do that? She shook her head. Not often. Too bad. Kurenai lifted the cup to her lips and stopped. She held it out to Hinata. Want to try? She held up her hands. I can't. I'm underaged? Well, you're old enough to fight for Kona. You're old enough to have a drink. It's up to you though, Kurenai said, leaning back, trying to let her know there was no pressure. Hinata stared for a moment, and reached out her hand. Kurenai placed the cup in her hand and Hinata took the sip. She coughed, and made a face. Kurenai laughed. Not your thing, huh? Hinata shook her head violently, as Kurenai handed her a pickled radish, which she devoured quickly to get the taste out of her mouth. I do not believe so. Kurenai shook her head. You don't need to be so formal, Hinata, relax. Hinata nodded. Sorry, sensei. Kurenai thought for a moment. I know it's a breach of conduct, but you can just call me Kurenai when we're alone. Hinata looked up at her. I don't want you to think of me as just a mentor. Think of me as a friend. Hinata nodded. Speaking of friends, Kurenai said, Irika said you had a couple at school? Sakura and Ino, Hinata said with a nod. How about the guys? Are you friends with Kiba and Naruto? Hinata nodded. And about Naruto? Kurenai said with a very big grin. She had read Irika's reports. Hinata looked up at Kurenai, and turned as red as Kurenai had ever seen. Hinata looked down at her hands and muttered a few words. Kurenai laughed openly. I'm just curious, what is it you see in him? The food came as Hinata slowly found her voice again. I admire him. I like that he's always smiling, always trying. He's got so much self-confidence. Hey, Kurenai said quietly. When she didn't look up, she repeated herself. Hey, if that's the reason why, Kurenai began when Hinata looked her in the eyes, then you picked a good guy. Hinata turned more red than normal. Naruto started packing for his training exercise after putting water on to boil. He searched everywhere trying to find clean clothes in his tiny apartment. Most would be surprised, his apartment was smaller than some people's closets. That didn't stop his apartment from being a horrible mess anyways. He found a jacket hiding under the bed. Looks clean, he thought before taking a curious sniff. Not even close, he thought as he threw it in his dirty clothes pile. He heard a knock at the door and jumped. No one ever visited him at home. Just a second! He shouted, trying to remember what Irika said when Naruto visited him. He opened the door and found his new sensei at the door. Hello, Naruto, she said, presenting a bag of groceries. Mind if I come in? Naruto opened the door all the way. No, not at all. Kurenai noticed a stiffness in his movements. He must not get very many visitors, she thought as he closed the door behind her. And by all things that are holy, he needs to clean, she thought in revulsion as varying smells hit her. She noticed a pile of clothes in the corner of the room. Naruto, when was the last time you did laundry? And do you not own any clothes that are not orange? Not, he paused for a moment and scratched his head. That long ago, I think, Naruto said. He noticed he had several pairs of dirty underwear on the floor and rushed over to shove them under the pile. I see you still have the paint from your last big prank, she commented as she caught sight of several pails of paint. I'm surprised Irika didn't confiscate those. He did, Naruto admitted. I got them back though. Kurenai thought for a moment. Maybe he's got a lot more talent than we give him credit for. She ran her hand through her hair, clearing her thoughts and making sure her mask was in place. Naruto, do you know why I'm here? Is it cause, he paused his cleaning as painful memories came back, of what's inside me? Wait, you know about that now? Kurenai said, her eyes narrowing just barely. Yeah, Naruto said, running over to the now boiling water and finding a ramen cup. I found out just before Irika passed me and allowed me to become a genin. Kurenai moved following Naruto as she made sure she had a smile on her face. She took the cup of ramen out of his hand. This, she said, placing it back in the cupboard where Naruto had his stock of foods, is not a good breakfast. To be a good ninja, you have to have a variety of things in your diet. I do. I have pork ramen, miso ramen, salt ramen, soy ramen. He started before realizing that Kurenai was rooting around in what passed for his kitchen. What are you looking for? Don't you have any pans? She asked. No, I don't, he mumbled slowly. Kurenai sighed. Well, as she turned her attention to the kettle that he used to heat the water, this will be a test of my abilities. She then emptied the kettle. What will? Breakfast, she said with a smirk. Hand me the bag, she ordered, and he complied. I wasn't here about the QB. I wasn't even aware you knew about that. That will have to be a conversation for another time. I was here because as your sensei I wanted to get to know you better. Seems like everyone already knows me though, Naruto said as he watched her crack a few eggs into the kettle after putting in some oil in the bottom of the kettle. Well, we know about you, we know what's inside you, who you are and what you want to do with yourself, but we don't really know you, she said as she pulled out a tomato from the bag and washed it. Tomatoes? Naruto griped. They're healthy, and I'll cook them so you won't even know you're eating them. Naruto sighed and Kurenai continued, just by walking in here I've learned a couple of things about you. Like what? Naruto asked as she pulled out spinach out of the bag. He groaned at the sight of it, but she ignored it. Well, for starters, she said as she tore the spinach into tiny pieces, you work hard. It seems like you spend a bit of time working out in here. How can you tell? He asked as she reached into the bag, pulling out a couple of strips of bacon. You need an air freshener. Smells like a gym in here, she said laughing as she ripped the bacon into pieces. Also, you like ramen. It's my favorite food. Naruto with a big grin. Well, you got to eat things other than just your favorites, Kurenai said laughing. Trust me, I can't have my favorite drinks all the time. Well, I don't like that. Better get used to it, she said looking into the kettle. You're a full ninja now, and you can't let your teammates down by being sickly. Fine, Naruto grumbled with resignation. You do have plates, right? She said with a quick glance around the room. Naruto jumped up and grabbed a stack of plates. He handed them to her. Oh, he started when he realized that they were very dirty. He began sheepishly. She took them and put them in the sink. This isn't normally the general use for a technique like this, but we'll make an exception, she said smiling mischievously. Let's see, ram, horse, bird, she said carefully as she made the appropriate hand signs. Naruto watched a small vortex of water appeared over the sink and thrashed about in the sink. Got any soap? Naruto laughed and grabbed his dish soap and threw a little in the sink. Bubbles flew out as the tornado cleaned the dishes. She stopped the technique and ran clean water over the dishes. She handed Naruto a clean plate to dry and lifted the kettle off the small stove. She reached into a drawer and gave up looking for proper utensils and pulled out a kunai. She scraped out most of the impromptu breakfast and gave it to Naruto and took the rest for herself. Despite not getting his favorite food, Naruto looked very content. To her surprise, it was Naruto who reinitialized the conversation. Iruka said that he had to try hard to put me on a different team. She set down the kunai she was using to eat with and nodded. Yeah, normally we base teams on grades, but Iruka argued that your grades were not indicative of your skills. I have to admit, I do think that might be the case. Why's that? Naruto asked, not looking up from the plate. You stole a scroll from the Hokage's mansion to start with. Do you even realize how impossible that's supposed to be? Really? Didn't seem that hard. Oh, for the love of, she said exasperatedly, don't tell Anbu that. Outsmarted and put down by a 13-year-old, she said laughing. Naruto sported a big grin of his face that began to crowd out the whisker marks on his face. Kurenai shook her head. Well, this started to take longer than expected, she said, but back on why I came here, I wanted to ask you what you know about Kiba and Hinata. Kiba's cool sometimes, Naruto said with a shrug. He made fun of me a lot, but sometimes he's helped me with pranks. But I've never really been around him much. Hinata's weird. Why is she weird? Kurenai asked. She's always red, like she has a fever. Oh, you poor kid, you're so clueless. It was all she could do to keep herself from laughing. But she's nice, Naruto said. She didn't make fun of me like the others did. Good, she said, I like that you like your teammates. And I think Hinata's fevers are going to go down a little over time. Huh. Don't worry about it, she said, getting up. Remember when we're meeting later today? 1 o'clock outside the gates, Naruto said, standing up and going to the door. She nodded and smiled at him one last time before leaving. Naruto closed the door and began to pack again. He ran to the other side of his apartment and thought. He walked over to the dirty clothes pile and reached deep under it. "Ah-ha!" he shouted. "So that's where they were," he said, pulling on a clean jacket. Kurenai shook her head as she left. "He'll be a handful, just like you said, Irika," she thought, walking down the steps and turning toward the Inuzuka household. After much deliberation, she stopped by a store on the way there and requested the manager. "I wonder if Hinata will calm him down or Kiba will," she thought with a false grin. "I take it the meeting with Kahona's unpredictable rookie went well." She turned and sighed. "Yes, it did, Asuma. Gotta admit I'm surprised," he said, rummaging in his pockets for a lighter. "From what I heard, he's going to be a pain." He found his lighter and flicked it open. Even Kakashi wasn't sure about taking him on. "Kakashi wasn't going to pass them anyways," she said. "No one's good enough for him," she commented matter-of-factly. "You haven't heard?" Asuma said as he lit his cigarette. Shino, Sasuke, and Sakura passed. Kurenai ripped the cigarette out of his mouth and stomped it out. "You're joking." "No, the Abirame boy is bright, saw through Kakashi's plot immediately, I think. Rumors are still circulating though," he sighed. "You know that was my last one." "Good, you'll set a bad example for your kids otherwise," Kurenai said as the manager came back. "I'm coming back in a week. I was hoping I could make sure to place an order now." Asuma continued as she ordered several pots and pans. "I don't think they mind too much. Ino is too much of a girly girl to want to smoke, and Shikamaru thinks it's troublesome to smoke." He waited for a reaction out of her, but when he didn't get one he added, "So, anyways, how about sometime soon you and I go out for drinks?" Kurenai finished her conversation with the manager, then turned. "Unlikely," she said simply and walked out. He stepped out of the store. "So that's still a chance, right?" She waved without looking back. "I'll think about it, no promises." Asuma shrugged. "Better that flat out getting turned down," he said, turning away. "Who am I kidding?" Kurenai walked down toward the Inuzuka house. She could tell it was bath day at the house. The smell of wet dog was pungent in the air. She looked up at the sky. It was early for lunch, but she wanted to have her meeting with Kiba before they had to meet. Slowly, she walked up to the door. Each step she took she heard more and more screaming and shouting, along with barking. Without a doubt she was in the right place. She knocked on the door, but to her surprise it fell down, causing the entire household to come to a dead stop. Kiba's mother was standing in the hallway. Her hand was raised in anger and her mouth opened to shout, but it was caught dead in her throat as she stared at their sudden guest. Kiba was running around with the Chunin's vest that his sister was chasing. Both had stopped just as quickly as their mother. His sister's 3 dogs were frozen in a circle about Kiba. Akamaru was sitting in front of Kurenai looking up at her with his tail wagging, which was the only movement in the room. "Am I interrupting anything?" "Not at all," Kiba's mother said. "You must be Kurenai? Kiba's new sensei." "Yes, I am," Kurenai said, petting Akamaru. "I wanted to take Kiba out and get to know him before I start the group training today." Kiba's mother turned back and let out a few sharp whistles. Kiba handed the Chunin vest and picked up Akamaru as he went outside. "Sorry about the door." "It's fine," he said as he pulled the door back up and pounded it into place. "You'd be surprised how often that happens." "Really? How many dogs did you see?" Kiba said, looking back with a smile. Kurenai thought back. "Well, there was Akamaru, and your sisters, so 4? Want to guess what happens when a squirrel runs by?" Kurenai laughed. "All right, well, do you know why I came over exactly?" "You said you wanted to get to know me, but don't you already know me? You picked us right?" Kiba said, following Kurenai. Akamaru trotted along happily at his heels. She nodded. "Let's get an early lunch," she said, then explained. "I know about you. I don't know you though." "I see," Kiba said slowly. "What was going on back there anyways?" Kurenai asked, looking back at him. Well," he said, shrugging, "it was just me playing around with my sister. She's always so serious. I have to pull a prank on her every now and again." "Oh no, Irika, your plan may backfire," Kurenai thought. "Seems like you and Naruto would get along just fine." "Tch," Kiba spat. "Something wrong?" Kurenai asked. "I don't hate him, but I didn't want to be on the same team as him," Kiba growled. "Why's that?" He stopped for a moment and thought. "I dunno, I just have this instinctive feeling, I guess. I've gone hunting with my mother a couple of times. It feels like that." Kurenai led him into a barbecue joint. "So, you're saying you want to hunt Naruto?" "Not quite, But yeah, Kiba said, sitting down. Akamaru jumped up onto the bench next to him and put his paws on the table. Can I ask a question? Go ahead, Kurenai said, sitting down across from him and ordering for the two of them. How'd Naruto manage to pass the exam? He's always been bad at cloning, and wasn't that good at transformations till recently. A year isn't exactly recent, Kiba, Kurenai explained, and would you believe me if I told you Naruto stole a scroll from the Hokage? Of course I wouldn't, Kiba said, scratching Akamaru's ears. That's impossible, especially for he thought for a moment. Well, he did get up on Hokage rock to paint the thing. If anyone were to pull it off, he looked at Kurenai while shaking his head, but he can't be that stupid. Well, he succeeded and managed to evade all the Anbu and Jonin in the process, and learned a technique from the scroll, a cloning one even. Good job, Naruto, Kiba said with a feral grin. Does he like him or not? Kurenai wondered. Anyways, what about Hinata? The food came out and Kiba started devouring a rack of ribs. Well, he said in between bites, I feel sorry for her really. He tossed half a bone to Akamaru, who began picking it apart. I mean, I'm glad she's not chasing Sasuke, but I don't know what she sees in Naruto. Not to mention that he has no clue about what's going on there. Kurenai giggled a bit. Well, I agree with you on that last part, to which Kiba only grunted as he tore through the food, and more ribs got tossed over to Akamaru. So what do you do in your spare time? Mostly just take walks with Akamaru, Kiba said, taking a break from his food to look at her and take a drink. She shrugged. Doesn't surprise me. She looked at most of her plate and then at Akamaru. The dog barked, and she turned to Kiba. He wants to know if you're going to finish that, he said with his mouth full of food. Kurenai slid the plate over to Akamaru, who immediately began clearing it. She smiled and watched her student devour his meal. Naruto was the last one to arrive at the gates. Kurenai and the rest of the team were waiting on him. Naruto smiled as he walked up to the three, but Kiba barked at him, You're late. Kurenai put a hand on Kiba's shoulder, but the feral grin across Kiba's face told everyone he wasn't truly upset. Kurenai smiled at Kiba. He is on time, you were just early. Hinata stuttered out. Hello, Naruto. Naruto folded his arms behind his head as he stretched. So what are we doing today? Kurenai gave Naruto a quick glance and then looked at her other students. She then turned and started walking out of the village. The three students followed her, and she began to explain, simply, today you three are going to be surviving and trying to live with each other. Huh? Said the orange idiot. She glanced back at Naruto and smiled. Well, the three of you I feel I can get along with, just like Iruka said I would. However, I want to make sure you three can get along with each other. The lone female in the group whispered, okay. Naruto, however, had a blank look on his face. Kiba growled, is this really necessary? I wanted to get on missions. Kurenai nodded and turned around and continued to walk them away from the village. She took a moment to observe her students. Hinata was the easiest to read. She was too shy to say anything though. Instead of talking, she chose to push her fingers together and stole furtive glances to Naruto. Kiba was a bit harder to read, though to her surprise she caught him stealing a glance or two at Hinata. Kiba became more comfortable the farther away they walked from the village, and she realized that he probably spent a lot of time out in the woods with his family. Naruto, the fox boy, on the other hand, was easy to read but harder to understand. As they left the village, elation began to come over the boy. She wondered why he was so excited about leaving the village. The academy students had to go outside the village for training at times, but his boyish glee was becoming more and more apparent. She stopped when she decided they were far enough. She turned and looked at her three students. Okay, here's good enough. Meet back here in a few days. Wait, Kiba started, but then Kurenai threw down a smoke ball and disappeared. Kiba growled, bah. She used pepper, I hate that. Where'd she go? Naruto asked. I think Hinata looked visibly struck when the two boys turned toward her. I don't think she's far. Kiba turned toward Naruto. Yeah, she's probably just watching us, he shrugged. Anyways, better to find a campsite. Isn't this spot good? Naruto asked. Not even, idiot, take a look, Kiba laughed. Naruto looked around, but didn't notice what Kiba was talking about. Huh? Kiba didn't bother explaining but instead continued walking. Hinata looked at Naruto. We SS should follow Kiba. Naruto kicked a root and then began following Kiba. Hinata walked a little behind him. Naruto grumbled a little as Kiba led them to a clearing. Kiba was already setting up a tent. Water isn't that far away, he said. We can easily get it if we need it, he looked at Naruto. Start setting up your tents. Naruto grumbled and started setting up his tent. Hinata nodded and began the process of setting up her tent. She fumbled a bit with her tent and heard laughter. She looked at Kiba and saw that he had already finished setting up his tent. Why, you're already done? Yeah, I got lots of practice, and Akamaru helps. What? Hinata asked, wondering how it was possible for a dog to set up a tent. Kiba walked over, ignoring her question. Here, he said, taking her hand and grabbing the pole in it, I'll help. Oh, thank you, the words fumbled out of her mouth as he started helping her. In a few moments her tent was up and ready. Kiba flicked the taut sides of the tent and flashed her a huge grin. She smiled back and she heard a bark beneath her. She kneeled down and scratched under Akamaru's chin. She heard a great crashing behind her, and she jumped. Naruto's tent was still not set up. It actually looked like he had damaged the tent. Kiba laughed hysterically. You idiot! He shouted as soon as he could spare a breath and pointed. The effort to speak was too much, and he began to laugh again. Naruto turned back. Shut up! He snapped, and went back to work. Kiba, Hinata started as she tried to silence him. Her voice completely drowned out by the laughter in the campsite. Kiba took a couple of deep breaths and wiped away a few tears. Okay, now that's out of my system. I'm going to go set up a few noise makers, don't want any animals wandering into camp. He looked at Akamaru. Buddy, dig a pit! Akamaru barked and turned to go dig the pit. Hinata turned. What, she fidgeted as Kiba ran off before she could ask how she could be useful. She turned around and saw Naruto still struggling. She began to fiddle with her fingers as she tried to think of what to say. She began to blush furiously as she realized that they were alone in the camp. She began to wonder what any of her friends would have done in this situation. She was brought out of her thoughts as she heard something snap and Naruto started grumbling. She breathed out a silent sigh of relief seeing it wasn't a pole that snapped, but unfortunately Naruto had just smacked himself in the head with one of the poles. And in Naruto, Hinata started. Her voice caught in her throat as Naruto turned and looked at her. Confusion evident on his face. I can help. No thanks, he said as he jumped back into setting up his tent. If stupid dog boy can do this, I can too. Hinata looked down at her hands again. He's not. She realized Naruto wasn't paying attention, instead he was working harder at trying to set up his tent. He smiled at her with pride when he finished. See? The tent collapsed and so did Naruto. I can help. Thanks, Hinata. The two of them worked together to get Naruto's tent set up. To Hinata's surprise, it seemed like Naruto had no clue what to do. She remembered all the camping trips that the academy had went on, but now that she thought about it, she didn't remember Naruto at most of them. Naruto had a big grin on his face. Hinata instantly began to blush as she saw that the smile that she liked was aimed at her. It was normally aimed at Sakura. Sakura. And Naruto, she started. Yeah? He said, still clearly pleased with himself that he managed to set up a tent. One of the basic survival skills. Aryu, she sighed and avoided her original question, happy with this team? What do you mean? He asked, confused. I was wondering if you would have wanted someone else on the team? Naruto thought for a moment. Well, maybe Sakura. Hinata could only say, oh. But beyond that, I guess I'm not really sure. He smiled. I get along with everyone about the same, I guess. Hinata felt she knew that smile. It seemed closer to the one she gave herself in the mirror than the one usually on the blonde in front of her. She wasn't sure what she wanted to say next. She was still trying to figure that out when Kiba bounded back into the campsite. Finally got the tent up? About time. He looked about and began to think out loud. We need firewood, and we need to set up traps for food. He shrugged and picked up his pack. Naruto, you should go get firewood, I'll set traps, and Hinata, you can do a one-over on the campsite. Hinata looked down at her feet. Okay, in her experience, a one-over on the campsite was a nice way of asking her to stay out of the way. Naruto grumbled and ran off into the woods. Kiba growled, idiot, didn't tie up his bag. Hinata looked over at Naruto's bag and back at Kiba. She hadn't noticed that he had already tied up, but now she was also aware that she had yet to tie her bag up. She reached for it, but Kiba hefted it up. Thanks. He smiled and shrugged. Nay, it's no problem, he said, quickly tying it for her above her tent. I'll go set those traps. Hopefully the idiot won't screw things up. He's just getting wood. I know, so be ready to run if he somehow gets a bear to chase him. He looked at Akamaru. Keep digging, bud. Hinata couldn't even laugh at the energetic bark. She wasn't happy when anyone called Naruto an idiot. She heard Akamaru bark again, and she was brought out of her thoughts. She looked at their fourth companion, and saw what appeared to be worry on his face. She shook her head and started going over her once-over on the camp. The only thing out of place was Naruto's bag. She took the bag and began tying it up. She heard crashing in the woods and, despite herself, began to worry if there was a bear. Naruto came out with a bundle of sticks. "What are you doing?" he asked, confusion evident by the tilt of his head. "Oh, I was," as she gulped and tried to regain her voice, she couldn't find it, "was tying up your bag." Naruto scratched his head with one of the sticks that he had picked up. "Why?" "Because animals tried to get in them sometimes." Hinata couldn't look Naruto in the face anymore. She was too nervous that she was going to say something wrong. Her eyes widened as she glanced at the bundle of sticks in his arms. "Naruto TT, that's green." Naruto looked at the sticks. "Huh? It means, idiot," Hinata jumped and turned toward Kiba, "that we can't use it. Green wood doesn't burn." "Oh," was all Naruto could say. "Seriously, you're such an idiot." "Kiba." Naruto threw the wood down. "Just shut up, dog breath. I'm sick of you ordering me around." "I'm not ordering." "Yes. You are. That's all you've done. Follow me, make camp, find wood, dig holes, look over. All you've done is order me and Hinata around." "And Naruto," Hinata said, trying to calm the blonde down. "Stupid," Kiba barked, "I'm just stating stuff we should already know how to do. You can't even set up a tent properly." Shut up," Naruto said, turning red with embarrassment. "The longer I'm around you, the more I'm convinced you're an idiot." "Kiba." "Shut up, you mutt." "That's a compliment." "Stop it. Stop it, both of you." The two boys both jumped, hearing the shy one shout. She continued, unaware that they were now paying attention to them. "Kiba, you're bossing Naruto around." "Naruto, you don't have to yell at Kiba." She looked up and saw that the two boys were dumbfounded. She felt her face turning crimson and she ran off into the woods. The two boys stared at her, the shock evident on their faces. "It's your fault." With that, they started yelling at each other again. Back in the village, Kurenai walked through the town. She wanted to stay out and watch her 3 charges, but she knew that between the Inuzuka and the Hyuga there was still a chance she'd get spotted. She'd wait until tomorrow to begin observing them. To her surprise, she ran into Kakashi at a bookshop. She grimaced as she knew exactly why he was there, and she hated those books. Kakashi surprised her. Instead of grabbing one of the orange books, he grabbed an encyclopedia. "Hello, Kurenai, it's been a while," he said, replacing the book he had been reading in his pouch. She almost jumped. "Hey," she responded without much inflection. "I heard you were asked to take the Abirame," Kakashi asked. "Iruka guilted me into taking Naruto instead," she admitted. "Well, thank you, the Abirame is a good one." She sighed. Kakashi looked at her. "Why don't we get some drinks? Seems like you need to take a load off." Kurenai paused, then decided it would be okay. She agreed and let him lead the way to a bar. It was a favorite of her, though she didn't think he knew that. It was the middle of the day, so only a few people were in there. Kurenai sat down at the bar and looked at her friend. "What do you think of Naruto?" "I know the reports, hyper, troublemaking, last of the class. Sounds like you have your work cut out for you." Kurenai chewed on her lip for a moment as the bartender gave her favorite drink while taking Kakashi's. The copy ninja raised at least one eyebrow at her, the other hidden by his forehead protector. "I see you come here often," he said, indicating Kurenai's favorite drink at the bar. The bartender returned with Kakashi's drink and a straw. Kakashi held up his encyclopedia around his face and sipped his drink through the straw. She shook her head. Why Kakashi desired to hide that face was a mystery to her. "I'm not asking about that, Kakashi," she said quietly. She felt Kakashi bristle. "You." "I don't hate him entirely," she started, trying to form words. "But he's..." "I know my teacher sealed it well," Kakashi growled. "But you don't hate him for taking your teacher?" she asked. "No, I hate it," Kakashi whispered. "I'm not cut out for this, Kakashi," she said quietly. "I shouldn't have tried to be a teacher. Let alone his." Kakashi calmed down. That doesn't sound like someone who truly hates their student would say. "I'm just doing it because Iruka asked me to." "Well, of course you are. I'm teaching Sasuke and them because the Hokage asked me to. She glared at Kakashi. She knew how stubborn he could be. His eye told her that he was smiling. Iruka asked you to train Naruto for a reason, he said, getting up, and to be honest, the fact that you're worrying about it tells me you're not as cold-hearted as you think you are. Kurenai sighed. It might not matter, of course. Kakashi turned. You think the three can't work together? She shrugged. From the reports, seems like Kiba and Naruto would get along well. Not so sure about that. Kakashi sighed and sat back down. She really did have a lot on her mind. Back at the campsite, things had gone from bad to worse. Namely that they had no fire, and no food. Naruto had never bothered to go back out for dry wood, and Kiba was too furious to remember to check the traps. Worse yet, Hinata never came back. The two boys stared at each other across the clearing. Kiba glared at Naruto and Naruto refused to look at the wild kid. Akamaru was in between the two, barking worriedly. Kiba looked at his dog before refocusing his glare on Naruto. Stupid idiot morandamas, he thought, thinking of all the words to describe Naruto. He growled and got up and walked toward where Hinata had ran off. He got down on his hands and knees and sniffed the ground. Lavender, he thought, and sprinted off into the woods. Akamaru whined and looked toward where Kiba had went. Kagebushin no Jutsu, Naruto shouted, scaring the dog. Akamaru turned and looked back at Naruto, and was shocked to see 10 of him. They all sprinted out of the clearing. Akamaru whined again. Then trotted off out of the clearing as well. Hinata sat crying. She had originally sat under the shade of a tree, but that was long ago. Now it was dark, and she was lost. She was glad to be lost. She had been happy to be on the same team as Kiba and Naruto. It wasn't perfect, but she was happy. Then she realized how wrong this was going. She knew Naruto didn't like to be looked down on, but she didn't think Kiba was looking down on Naruto. She sighed as she realized she didn't know how Kiba felt about Naruto. She whimpered into the sleeves of her coat. Now she wouldn't know, they couldn't even last one night as a team, and they were going to lose each other as teammates. Hinata. She looked up and saw Kiba approaching her. She wiped her eyes and tried to smile. Hello, Kiba. He sat down next to her and sighed. It seems like me and that guy don't get along. I know. He sighed. I don't think it'd be so bad, if only he wasn't so useless. Can't set up a tent, doesn't realize he needs to tie his bag up. He laughed. The idiot doesn't even know what type of wood he needs to get. Hinata seemed to shrink as he talked. He sighed. I don't even know what you've seen in him. Her voice escaped her throat before she realized. The small scream made Kiba jump, and she was sure he could feel the heat radiating from her face. She put her fingers together. How did you know? He laughed, which echoed in the woods. Hinata, the entire world knows. Naruto is just too stupid to notice. She sincerely hoped that not everyone knew, her father least of all people. He leaned back. Damn, today was a mess. We got so mad at each other we didn't even find food or wood. Hinata didn't respond, she only stared at her friend. Kiba sighed and began to laugh. You gave us all a start, with the shouting and all. A familiar hated feeling crept back into her face. Sorry. You shouldn't be sorry. You should do that more often. Hinata stared at boy sitting near her. He let out a big sigh, and stood up. Hinata, he started as he held out a hand to her. I know you're head over heels for that idiot, but just remember there are other guys out there too. Hinata let him help her up, and she smiled. But not others like him. Oh hell, could you imagine 2 Narutos running around? Kiba said, laughing. I bet Iruka would have a heart attack. Hinata laughed, and followed Kiba back to the camp. To their surprise, Naruto and Akamaru were gone. There was also a small pile of wood near the fire pit. Kiba lifted his nose to the air. Strange, he said, his scent is really strong, it's all over the place. He looked at her. Want to look for him? Your Byakugan would be useful, he said. She nodded and began running through the hand signs. She was too embarrassed to admit that she needed them to activate an ability everyone else in her family could do by instinct. She moved her head on instinct rather than necessity to look for her Naruto. I don't know, she admitted. I see a few people out there. They heard a bark and saw Akamaru trotting into the campsite, carrying a small dead stick in his mouth. He plopped it in the wood pile and barked again. Kiba laughed. All right, Akamaru. You're better than the idiot. Hinata heard something crashing in the woods behind them, which also triggered the noise makers Kiba had left out. She saw Naruto running into the clearing. Hinata! You're okay. Of course she is, idiot. No thanks to you. Kiba, Hinata said, turning toward Naruto. Why, yes, I'm okay. That's good, Naruto said with a grin, and Hinata noticed all of the other people out in the woods had disappeared. I was worried that dog breath wouldn't find you. I'm a tracker. Of course I could find her. Kiba noticed that Naruto had somehow managed to get several sticks in his hair, and his arms were pretty scratched up. He smiled, realizing that Naruto had thought of the same thing he had when he left the campsite. What are we going to do for food? Hinata asked. Kiba sighed, realizing that this was partly his fault. It's a little late. We should. Naruto looked at Kiba. You said there was a river? Yeah. Take us, Naruto said, getting a grin on his face. Kiba sighed. Well. Hinata looked at the wood Akamaru had gotten. I'll make the fire, she said. Kiba looked at her, then smiled. Okay then. Naruto, the lady's making a fire. Let's get her something to cook. He then turned and ran off, letting Naruto follow him. It didn't take him long to get to the river. Okay, so here we are. How are we dash? Kagebushin no Jutsu. Suddenly the river was filled with dozens of Naruto. Kiba stared at them. Poor Irika. They ate surprisingly well that night, hunger making the food taste better. The boys commented on Hinata's cooking, which made her blush. Especially because she really had no idea how. She always had the servants and the branch family to cook for her. They finished eating, put out the fire, and all crawled into bed. Naruto crawled into his tent, got dressed for bed, then he slipped into his sleeping bag. He didn't want to sleep, because he knew what was waiting for him when he'd sleep. Mizuki stood above him. You are the nine-tailed fox. He shouted at Naruto and pointed a kunai at him. You killed Irika's parents. Naruto turned around and saw a bloodied Irika. Yeah, the fox is like that. No, I'm not. I'm not the fox. Naruto shouted, horrified. Really? Mizuki asked. Aren't you the one who did this? He said, pointing at a ruined Kanehage. No, I didn't. Yes, you did, Irika gasped behind him. No. No! Naruto shouted as he looked down at his hands, which were beginning to grow fur. That was when his nightmare really began. Naruto woke up startled. He pulled the sleeping bag closer about him as the terror of the dream began to fade. Naruto slowly turned up and looked at the unfamiliar sight above him. He slowly remembered that he had went camping the night before. That didn't explain why he was looking at clouds. He jumped up and looked about. Hey! He shouted, where'd our tents go? Kiba and Hinata both jumped up, and realized that they too were missing their tents. Kiba jumped up and started smelling about the camp. Naruto jumped up and ran over to Kiba. Find anything? No, Akamaru? Kiba asked. The dog whined, affirming that he too did not find any strange scents. The two both started sniffing the air, and Kiba growled. Damn, I smell rain. Oh, so you can smell the weather but not who took our tents? Naruto grumbled. Oh, knock it off. Kiba barked. See, can you guys get dressed? Hinata asked, covering her eyes, her red face contrasting quite nicely against her pale hands. Naruto and Kiba looked at each other. Naruto ran over to his pack to get dressed while Kiba walked past Hinata. What's the matter? He asked with a lecherous smirk. Don't like the view? He barely heard her screaming over his own laughing. The two guys got dressed, though it took Hinata a long time to take her hands away from her face. Kiba looked about the campsite, taking curiosity sniffs around where the tents were. He couldn't smell anything unusual by the location where his own tent used to be, and he caught the scent of lavender from Hinata's. He got to Naruto's tent's location and sniffed the ground. Fear? He wondered, looking back at the blonde who was currently wondering if Hinata was sick. Kiba looked at Akamaru, who whined. His partner was in agreement. He sighed and stood back up and walked over to his teammates. All right, so we need food and a fire for today. He turned to Naruto. Naruto, you go and look for the traps I set. No. What? Naruto folded his arms. I'm sick of you ordering me around. I'm not order. That's all you've done. Kiba growled. Naruto, I'm just saying that this is what we should do. And ordering us around in the meantime. Kiba slapped his forehead. He was not ready to deal with this, especially this early in the morning. He looked at Hinata. He could smell fear coming off of her. He looked at Naruto and took a deep breath. Naruto. Why should I go look for the traps anyways? You set them. I was going to go get the firewood. Hinata stepped between them. See, can we just get what we need? She looked at Naruto. Would you mind getting TT the wood? Naruto frowned. KK Kiba, will why you go and CC check the traps? She asked. Kiba sighed. Okay, Hinata. Naruto sighed as well. Okay, I can do it. Kiba nodded and started walking off to go check the first set of traps. Naruto began walking as well. He was about 100 feet out of the clearing when he heard a twig snap behind him. He jumped and was surprised to see Hinata behind him. Sorry, she said. What are you doing here? He asked. Well, I thought that you could use the help. Oh, like I can't get firewood by myself? He asked. She shook her head adamantly. No! She almost shouted, I wanted to help. I can at least carry some wood myself. Naruto frowned. You sure? No one else wants to be around me. Oh, of course, she said with a conviction that even surprised herself. Why, you might not like the team, but I really like it. All her conviction disappeared and she suddenly felt like her fingers were very interesting. She stole a glance up at Naruto. Naruto's first expression was utter and total shock, then confusion. Then he broke out in a smile that made Hinata start to blush. Well, all right, he shouted, let's get so much firewood even Kiba will be impressed. Hinata tried to stop blushing. Oh, okay. Naruto began to run around like crazy picking up all the dead sticks that he could find. Hinata activated her Byakugan and helped him find trees that were dying and they ripped off the bark for their fire. In what felt like no time at all, Naruto was laden down with firewood, and even Hinata had a small pile. Hinata had a perpetual blush on her face the entire time. She had watched Naruto's antics before, and had been quite confident in her stealth skills until last night when Kiba informed her the entire world knew about her unrequited crush on the blonde. But staring at him from afar was nothing like being there with him. She was brought out of her thoughts when Naruto mentioned their other teammate. And that stupid Kiba can shove it, he declared to her. Who does he think he is? Bossing me around like that? Hinata tried to start, and her surprise the hyperactive kid in front of her heard her and stopped to pay attention. He's not really that bad. Huh. He's just very abrasive to people he doesn't know, she stated. You mean he's not always a jerk? Well, Hinata didn't want to talk bad about a friend, but she also wasn't a liar. He's better with people he knows. We've all been in class together for years, Naruto pointed out and half whined. Kiba, she looked at Naruto, who was staring at her. Kiba is a good person, she said. But? Naruto prompted when she didn't continue. But Kiba just likes to be strong, he wants to know where he stands. We're supposed to be equal. Hinata cringed at Naruto's line. But she looked up and saw him smiling with an idea passing behind his eyes. They got back to the camp, and Hinata saw Kiba standing in the clearing with multiple rabbits in his hands. Hey! We got a great catch this today. Naruto nodded and threw his bundle of sticks on the ground near the fire pit. He turned toward Hinata. Hey, can you do me and Kiba a favor and light the fire? Why, yeah, Hinata said slowly. Naruto smiled. Thanks, Hinata, he said, then punched Kiba. What the Kiba shouted but was cut off as Naruto continued his attack on Kiba. And Naruto! Hinata shouted. Naruto swung again at Kiba, but missed as Kiba ducked. Naruto tried to back away as Kiba countered with an uppercut. Naruto hit the ground and rolled back up. He paused and smirked as Kiba wiped his jaw and growled as he saw a bit of charged him, while he was momentarily wrapped his arms about Kiba and lifted. Naruto ignored the blows that Kiba attempted to lay into him and slammed Kiba into the ground. Naruto! Stop! Hinata shouted. Kiba let out a feral shout. He flipped Naruto over and onto the ground. Kiba circled about Naruto's legs to get his hips over Naruto's stomach. Secured in his position, he began unleashing a flurry of blows to Naruto's head. His opponent covered his blonde head in an attempt to protect himself. Kiba! Kiba tried to bat away Naruto's defenses, but Naruto saw a chance and grabbed one of Kiba's arm. Naruto, however, left an opening and suffered a powerful blow to his head. He heard Kiba's laughter while he blinked to clear the stars away from his vision. Guys, stop it! Stop it now! Stop fighting! Hinata shouted as loudly as she could. Stay out of it! Naruto shouted. We just gotta get this out of our system. Kiba stopped punching Naruto for a moment, then a feral grin spread across his face. I couldn't agree more. Winner is leader of our group. Losers gotta listen, Naruto shouted before twisting Kiba's arm. He was rewarded with a cry of pain, and he felt Kiba's weight lift off of him. Naruto used the extra room to kick Kiba away. Kiba glanced at Hinata and smiled. Better get started on that fire, we're going to be hungry. Hinata stared dumbfounded at Kiba as Naruto charged Kiba while he was distracted again. She activated her Byakugan to observe the fight, and she silently but reluctantly let her comrades fight each other. When the food was ready, the fight was finished. Hinata ran to her pack and grabbed a medical bomb and ran to the two boys. Both of them were completely collapsed and exhausted. Neither were willing to admit defeat, but neither were able to continue. She sat down between the two boys and began preparing to apply it to the boys. Hey, Kiba, started Naruto. Yeah? Naruto responding, looking at the kid on the ground near him. Good fight. Kiba raised a fist at Naruto with a smile. Naruto smiled back and he pounded his own fist into Kiba's. From her hidden spot near the campsite, Kurenai introduced her palm to her forehead with a loud slap. Men, she thought, why do they have to be just so stupid? She looked up at the sky and frowned as the clouds darkened. Looks like rain, she thought. Kiba scarfed down his food, despite how much it hurt to chew. Akamaru whined, sensing his master's pain, but Kiba just smiled at him. He was very thankful for Hinata's medical cream, but he was surprised at how quickly Naruto had healed. The hyperactive blonde was pretty much completely healed already. Kiba looked up at the sky. So what are we going to do? About? Naruto asked, his mouth still full of food. It's going to rain, Kiba said. We're going to have to come up with something, or we're going to have to tough it out. Can we build a shelter? I mean, we could, but we don't really have the. He trailed off and smiled at Naruto. Hey, Naruto, think you can get a bunch of big logs for a lean-to? Naruto smiled. How about a bunch of trees? He said, standing, making a set of hand signs, Kage Bushin and Ojutsu. Hinata's eyes grew wide as the entire campsite filled with clones of Naruto. The clones cleared out, and Kiba picked a spot and he and Akamaru started digging. Hinata slowly stood up and determined she could help too. She laid out her sleeping bag and then got Naruto's to make bedding for the three of them. She then began to help digging where Kiba pointed. Several Narutos had already returned carrying an uprooted tree. Kiba pointed out what they needed to do and they began chopping the tree down into a usable log. The next group of Narutos came in, and they also got to it. Between the three of them, for if you included Akamaru, they got the shelter set up before the rain started pouring. All of them hunkered down underneath the lean-to. Naruto looked over at Kiba and the two of them laughed, looking at the dirt on their faces. They turned toward Hinata, who also smiled. She laughed and said, "Thanks." Naruto stopped laughing and looked at her. For what? For working together, she said, a small blush creeping into her cheeks. We can make a great team. Kiba smiled at her and nodded. I guess the idiot over here isn't so bad. And the jerk over there can be bearable, Naruto said, punching Kiba. Please don't fight again, Hinata said timidly. Naruto held his hand out for Kiba to shake. Friends, right? Yeah, Kiba said, taking his hand. He turned to Hinata and took her hand and put it over his and Naruto's. We're a team. We're all together, right? He said, looking at Naruto. Yeah. Kurenai smiled and got up. She had seen enough. It was time to pick up their first mission. That night the three of them slept in the lean-to. Kiba apologized profusely as Hinata began blushing as she had to sleep in the same shelter as Naruto. Naruto volunteered to be the one sleeping in the small corner of the lean-to. She forced herself to move next to Naruto. She would never forgive herself for missing this opportunity if she didn't. She was proud of herself for not fainting. Naruto pushed over a pillow for her to use. She buried her face in it, glad that the darkness that Naruto couldn't see her red face. Kiba plopped down next to her and Akamaru jumped over him and Hinata to the warm corner in the back. Really, Akamaru? Kiba said, leaving me for them? You cheater. Naruto laughed as he petted Akamaru. Hinata looked out of the corner of her eye and saw Naruto's smile. She was as happy as she could imagine to be. An hour later, Naruto made things a lot more difficult. He was the first to fall asleep and began to snore. Kiba laughed and looked over at Hinata. The girl was looking toward Naruto, but he could tell by her breathing she wasn't yet asleep. Great, we got this to look forward to from now on. She let out a gasp and Kiba sat up. Naruto had reached out in his sleep and grabbed her arm. Gah, stupid Naruto. And no, he looked at the speaker, his eyes focused on the blonde ninja. No, I swear. Is he okay? Kiba asked no one in particular. Akamaru whined. Please no. Hinata looked at Kiba, who was frowning. Naruto continued to beg in his dreams and Hinata had enough. Naruto, she said as she shook him. The boy jumped. No! He looked at Kiba and Hinata. What's wrong? You were having a bad dream. She saw a weak smile in the dark. Oh sorry, I have them a lot. They sounded bad, Kiba offered. They are, he admitted, but I got to get used to them, they aren't going away. You want to talk about them? Naruto's head hit the pillow, he rolled over onto his side. I can't, not really anyways. Why? It's horrible. Kiba nudged Hinata. Hinata rolled back and looked at him. He nodded and she looked at Naruto. Tell us anyways. Naruto sighed. My dream, I come across Iruka and Mizuki. I'm soaked in blood. Naruto began to curl up. Iruka says he hates me, and I turn around and the entire village is destroyed. Not everyone's dead, but the place is on fire. Then I turn into the Kyuubi. Then I kill everyone. I chase them down and kill them. I scream for them to run and try my hardest to stop myself. Naruto was crying now. I shout and try to get them to save themselves, but they don't. I kill them all. Hinata was surprised to see Kiba reach over and grab Naruto's shoulder. It's a dream, okay? I swear if you ever are able to kill someone like Iruka, I will start running as fast as possible. Naruto smiled weakly. Hinata added, I know you'd never tried to hurt us. Thanks guys. Akamaru let out a yip and licked Naruto's face. You too, Akamaru. Kiba rolled over and fell asleep, followed soon by Naruto. Hinata tried her best to ignore his whimpers. The next morning Kiba led them to the river again. While Hinata worked on fishing lines and poles, the two boys played in the water. She was thankful there was work to do. Naruto failed to notice the effect he had on Hinata when he would just rip off his shirt in front of her to jump in the water. She had just finished laying out line when she noticed someone walking up to them. She turned and saw her sensei walking toward the three of them. She jumped. Kurenai sensei. Kurenai waved it off as she saw Naruto and Kiba enjoying the water. Didn't feel like swimming, Hinata? She shook her head. There were things that needed to get done. Really? Kurenai said, looking at Hinata's work. Seems like those boys are scaring away any fish. Hinata nodded. Later though, we'll need it. Kurenai smiled with a small trace of nervousness in it. But don't you want to spend time with Naruto? Hinata turned red. I just want to help. Kurenai's smile became a little brighter. Well, you'll get a chance, she said and looked at the boys. Dry off. We got a mission. The two boys jumped out of the water and changed clothes. They ran over, Kiba not bothering to put his shirt on. It's a D rank, of course, meaning there's no danger, but you still get paid. What's the mission? Kiba asked. About that I don't think you'll like it, but it is in your nature. Huh. Don't worry, with your nose, Naruto's clones, and Hinata you should be able to find her within the hour. Several hours later. Get that damn cat. Kiba pointed down the merchant quarter's main street. Get that damn cat. At his shout Akamaru sprinted forward into the crowd. He followed suit quickly, letting Akamaru part the crowd for him. He saw their target backed up against the merchant's stall hissing at Akamaru. Kiba let out a snarl as he dove at his source of anger. Tore a dove out of the way and he collided with the stall, bringing the stall down much to the dismay of yet another merchant. Kiba slapped the cheap radio in his ear. Naruto! Hinata! Target spotted. Going into the merchant quarter. There were a series of Rogers on the other end and Kiba saw several flashes of orange in the crowd. Kiba growled as he stood up. He was going to feel this tomorrow. One of the Naruto clones ran up to Kiba to make sure he was okay, but Kiba waved it off. The merchant next to the stall Kiba had crashed through cursed and began closing up shop. Naruto frowned at the merchant, and Kiba took a glance around. He noticed that many of the stall owners were closing up shop now that there were 10 of the prankster ninja in the area. Akamaru barked at Kiba and led the way after Tora. Kiba's mind wandered as he chased after his partner. He wondered why the store merchants had such a reaction seeing Naruto. Judging by Naruto's expression, it was related to him, and not something else entirely. Then Kiba remembered the reputation his teammate had for pranking. A particular nasty one stood out in Kiba's mind involving 100 rotten tomatoes, a box of thumbtacks, and if he believed the rumors, 1 eel. Mizuki would forever rue that day. Another bark from Akamaru brought Kiba's mind back to the matter at hand as he saw Tora trapped in an alley. Naruto snuck up on Tora while the cat was focused on Akamaru, who was steadily inching closer to the cat. Naruto dove forward with a surprising quickness and caught Tora. "I got her!" "I got!" His cries of victory were cut short as Tora twisted in his grasp and began biting and scratching him. Kiba rushed over to help when Tora lashed out with a savage bite to Naruto's nose. He cried out in pain as the clone dissipated and their quarry ran off yet again. Kiba groaned and gave chase. He cornered the cat in alley. He and Akamaru slowly began to approach their quarry. "I got you now," he said with a quick smile at Kiba. His split-second moment of distraction cost him. Tora attacked swiftly, showing the term cat-like reflexes wasn't just for show. Kiba fell back as Tora dove at his face, clawing him and leaving several red furrows in his skin. He fell back against the vicious onslaught, but Akamaru chased Tora out of the alley. Several Naruto clones had barricaded the alley. Kiba breathed a sigh of relief, tempting fate. Tora, however, did not stop. She feinted toward the clone on the right, then quickly dove left. The clone on the right fell for the feint and dove after the cat. The others reached down, and one caught Tora. Tora twisted and screeched horrendously as she fought against her captor. With a quick twist of her body, she caught a hold of Naruto's shirt with her paw, and with her other she reached up to go for his neck. The clone was quickly destroyed under her onslaught, and both Kiba and the still-standing clone dove for the falling cat. "I got her!" they both shouted. Kiba's head collided with the clone's, making him disappear in a poof of smoke. Tora dove at the clone, who was still recovering from his fall, then attacking him until the clone finally succumbed to the cat's vicious and bloodthirsty attack. She then ran off under the cover of the smoke screen that was once a Naruto clone. Kiba sprinted out into the street and looked about. He smiled as he saw Tora duck under a few barrels into a merchant's stall. He sprinted toward her, pushing everyone out of his way. He dove through the barrels. He saw Tora a few feet in front of him, but found that he had fallen into a trap that even Naruto would have been proud of. He saw pure malevolence behind the cat's eyes as she calmly climbed the barrels above him. Kiba snarled and growled at the cat. "Just wait till I get my hands on you," he threatened. The owner of the stall jumped at his intruder, but Kiba ignored him. He watched as Tora climbed the barrels above him. Keeping an eye on the beast, he noticed that the barrels made makeshift shelves. He looked up at horror at the cat, who proceeded to circle behind one of the barrels. "She's not that smart, right?" he hoped. His hopes were dashed when he saw a barrel begin to tip. The cat's eyes glinted in delight as dozens of the barrels came crashing down upon Kiba, plunging him into darkness. Kiba came to feeling something on his face. He slowly opened his eyes in shock, but relaxed when he saw it was just Akamaru licking him awake. Kiba groaned as he sat up. He tapped the radio. "This is Kiba. How long have been out of contact?" "Just a few minutes," Hinata offered. "Where have you been?" Naruto shouted with obvious impatience. Kiba winced at Naruto's voice. "Got taken out by Tora. Damn cat." He wasn't surprised, no one blamed him. The cat had to have been trained as a ninja. He swatted away the potatoes that now surrounded him. With a heavy push he stood up, taking out the wall of the stall that he had been trapped under. He growled and got his nose to the ground and began sniffing. Kiba followed her scent to a dango cart. With an excited grin he began circling the cart, earning him some strange looks from the cart owner and the Kanochi at the cart, who wore a rather attention-grabbing outfit. He looked up. "Akamaru." Akamaru began circling the cart and barked in confirmation. The target was indeed in the cart. Kiba slowly reached over and slid the door slightly open. Tora jumped out and gripped his face with her claws. He cried out in pain as he felt her claws sink into his skin. He forcibly removed her from his face and held her up. "I swear I." Kiba learned a valuable lesson that day, never to talk to a defeated enemy. Tora reached up and swiped at his nose, drawing blood, making him drop her in shock. Akamaru barked and dove after her, and when Kiba recovered enough, dropped on all fours and followed suit. The woman at the cart glared at the owner. "So what's this about keeping animals with the food?" she demanded, pulling out a kunai. Kiba smacked the radio again. "I found the target again. She hid in a dango cart." "Where?" Naruto demanded. "About halfway through the merchant quarter." "We're here," several voices called out, and Kiba saw many bright orange ninjas jump out onto the street. Tora dove into a merchant's stall, and a few of the highly visible ninja jumped into the stall and began tearing it up, desperately trying to find the cat. Kiba noticed a small figure slink off. "Ha!" he cried out and pointed. One of the clones saw his outburst and dove after the cat, but he was too slow. Akamaru jumped in front of the cat to corner her off. She turned, not noticing Kiba cutting off yet another escape route who dove for her, but once again she evaded all attempts of capture. The clone jumped up again and she slipped between his hands with all the agility of her species. The clone was thrown back with force at Kiba, crushing him beneath the orange one. Another clone dove over them and dog-piled Kiba and the other clone. The two clones dissipated and Kiba was left once again with the cat. Kiba chased Tora through the streets, plowing through pedestrians left and right. Tora ran under another cart. Seeing this, Akamura jumped over the cart, surprising the merchant. Kiba, on the other hand, opted to just plow through it, horrifying the merchant who couldn't believe what his eyes were telling him. As his shock dissipated, he began lamenting the loss of his cabbages. Tora ran under yet another merchant's stall and Kiba sprinted over. He jumped over the stall and flipped in the air, coming muzzle to muzzle with a spitting Tora, who backed up and hissed at him, waving her paws threateningly. Akamaru came running out, barking as ferociously as the 11-pound dog could. Tora took off like a bullet, sprinting into the next merchant's stall, who at that point had already begun damage prevention tactics. Kiba dove after her, crashing into a set of barrels headfirst. He groaned as a very powerful scent hit his nose. Fish, I hate fish. He stood up and saw Tora running out of the merchant quarter, while the merchant's supply of somewhat fresh fish slid off his back and shoulders. "This is Kiba," he said, hitting the radio. "The target has escaped. I repeat, target has escaped." "I see the target," a voice quietly chimed in. Kiba perked up and smiled. "All right, Hinata. Good job," he said, running out of the merchant quarter, chasing after the cat into the park. Several clones of Naruto joined him. "How are we going to catch this thing?" one of the many copies of Naruto asked. "Why ask me, stupid? I have no idea," another clone sniped back. "Shut up. I'm not stupid, the first clone said. Kiba rolled his eyes. "You all must be stupid. You're the same person," he growled, pointing to all the Naruto clones in turn. He then focused on following Tora's scent when another scent hit his nose. Lavender, he recalled. They came to a park bench where they found Hinata sitting, the demonic cat they chased the entire day, sitting in her lap happily purring. The clones disappeared, leaving a very shocked Naruto and Kiba alone with their teammate. "How?" Naruto gaped. Hinata began to blush. "I've always been good with animals." Kiba smiled and shook his head. "Yeah, don't I know," he mused. Hinata almost jumped when a hand fell on her shoulder. "Good job," Kurenai said with a very faux smile on her face. "You all," she paused for a moment as she tried to find the correct words, "put forth a great effort today." She remained quiet for a moment, trying to steel her voice. "Let's go back and get our reward." She looked down the main street of the merchant quarter. "If we even have one left," she thought with a groan. Kiba and Naruto both saw her gaze shift and looked back, now very aware of how much damage they had caused. They both looked at each other and gave each half-hearted smirks. "I bet I was more memorable," Kiba boasted. "You wish," Naruto said with a laugh. Kurenai introduced her palm to her forehead with a resounding smack. She had a feeling that wouldn't be the last time either. "I don't want them competing like this." She took a deep breath. "That is not the goal of the mission. The goal was to capture Tora unharmed and quickly. Only one of which you guys managed to do. Next training session we have will be focused on stealth, I think." The two boys laughed nervously. Kurenai looked back down the street. "The Hokage is not going to be happy about this," she grimaced. Kurenai finished her oral report and took a deep breath in, mentally preparing herself for the response she knew was coming. The Hokage sighed, and Kurenai glanced over at Irika, who was currently helping the great professor. Irika's head had hit the desk as soon as she mentioned Naruto, and Kiba managed to destroy a fence chasing Tora back into the city, and hearing about the damages they caused only seemed to deflate the teacher further. When the Hokage began to speak, Kurenai snapped back to attention. "Well, good job getting Tora back safely. You successfully completed the mission. Tora is unharmed and returned safely. Good work." The Hokage nodded and Tora's owner, the fire daimyo's wife, was brought in. "My precious!" she shouted, running over and yanking the now screaming cat out of Hinata's arms. "Oh, my wonderful kitten! You scared me." Kurenai hadn't recovered enough mentally to stop Kiba from yelling at the client's treatment of the animal. "Don't do that!" Kiba shouted. "No wonder she's running away." Madame Shirjima looked down at Kiba with utter shock on her face. She then smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, you poor dear, you just don't understand how much me and Tora love each other." Now Kiba stood open-mouthed as she walked out the door to pay the village. The door closed and Naruto commented, "Man, if I were that cat, I'd run away too." The Hokage laughed at Kurenai, who still hadn't quite come to grips with the Hokage's reactions. "Kurenai, That is not the best way to catch flies. Mortified, Kurenai regained her composure. She smiled. Sorry, I was just surprised. There were complications during the mission. Yes, but the mission was completed. Kurenai bit her lip and thought for a moment. She turned toward her students who were staring at her. She mentally sighed and then said, Well, you heard the Hokage. I'll ask him about our next mission. In the meantime, Naruto and Hinata, you two can go home and eat. Kiba, I want to have a meeting with you. We'll meet back up in 2 hours at the gates for some training and I'll inform you about the mission. Kiba spoke up, Actually, sensei, I told my mother I'd help her with something when I ran into her today. That explains the reports about the dogs, Irika groaned. Kurenai smiled. Great. Girls' night it is, she said, giving a wink to her shy student. Kiba, Naruto, you're dismissed. Your equipment from the teamwork mission is at your homes. The two thanked her and walked quickly outside. Kurenai smiled at Hinata. Mind seeing them off? Hinata excused herself and followed the boys. Kurenai covered her face with a smile and looked at the Hokage. Sir, I have to ask. The Hokage took off his hat and inspected it. It's about the damages, isn't it? She nodded. Naruto did quite a number on many of the stalls. Kiba as well, Irika pointed out. Kurenai almost flinched at the fact. Yes, but Kiba has a backing of a clan, Naruto doesn't, she recovered and Irika nodded. There's insurance, the Hokage said with a weary sigh, and for a moment Kurenai was very aware of how old he was. He held his pipe in his hands, which were wrinkled and spotted with age. His eyes went over the intricacies of the merchant pipe. Kurenai winced noticing the age about his eyes, and the sorrow in them. When I let Naruto join the others in the academy, there were a lot of cries of outrage. The merchants got together and enacted an insurance policy in case something like this happened. Kurenai nodded. So they'll be asking for compensation then. Will the... She was cut off by a very sharp voice. That was what their insurance was for. I will not let them take money from the village, let alone Naruto, after all they've done. The air in the room went cold. Kurenai couldn't help but shake as killing intent filled the room. Unwillingly, she looked up at the Hokage. All the traces of age seemed to disappear, replaced with pure anger. Kurenai felt her fingers go numb under his fury. Irika spoke up with a soft voice, Lord Hokage? The Hokage drew a deep breath from his pipe, his anger dying. Kurenai let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. She tried to mask her fear with a smile, but the pained look on the Hokage's face told her she was failing. She said nervously, Well, seeing as there are no issues, I'll go take my student to lunch. The Hokage nodded and Kurenai quickly left the room. She felt the tightness in her throat disappear, and with practiced skill she turned toward Hinata with a smile. Well then, she was too somber to chuckle at Hinata being caught unaware and jumping at Kurenai's voice, Shall we go eat? I'd guess you'd have a lot to tell me. Why yes, Hinata said quietly and followed Kurenai out of the building. Meanwhile Naruto was practically jumping and skipping on the way to Ikaraku's. The pay from the mission was minor, and so they gave out cash instead of checks, but that meant he didn't have to stop by the bank, which he hated. Too many people and too many glares. It was hard to be happy about having a full wallet with that many people staring at him. On the way there he had to pass by the merchant quarter. He shoved his wallet in his pocket and ducked his head down and began to walk quickly as he passed the street he had half destroyed. Well, he thought, the other half is Kiba's fault. To his joy, he saw another Kanochi there. He looked around and saw no merchants were in the streets, and decided it'd be okay to stick around. He ran up. Hey, Sakura! She looked up and set down the crate she had been holding with an annoyed look on her face. What is it, Naruto? I'm busy. Naruto flashed the biggest smile he could muster. I just got done with a mission and saw you. So I wanted to say hi. Sakura didn't want to talk to him, but at the same time she did want a break. What mission? Catching an evil cat, Naruto said with a weary sigh. I highly doubt an animal such as a cat has the capabilities of being evil or good. It is just an animal, unless you are speaking of Bakuniko. The two ninja turned to see a third and a fourth approaching them. Sakura smiled at Sasuke, who didn't return it. Shino continued, Did this cat show attributes of having an above-average intelligence? Naruto grimaced, remembering how often it fooled him and Kiba. Sasuke caught this and smirked. I bet it was smarter than Naruto. Next time I'll catch it myself. Naruto shouted, throwing his fists up in the air. Sakura shook her head. Wow, Naruto, you can't even catch a cat. Shino pushed his glasses up. Given Naruto's evasion, abelites are enough to give many of our high-ranked ninja trouble, Perhaps this cat is a legitimate challenge. Sakura and Sasuke frowned. Sakura was about to challenge Shino, but Sasuke spoke up first. Well, maybe next time we'll ask for the mission. I'll ask about it, a new voice cut in. A masked man was now standing behind all of them. Naruto jumped back a half step, realizing that this man had simply walked up to them, and none of them noticed. One eye was covered by his forehead protector, the other had a mischievous glint in it. He looked at Naruto, and Naruto could tell by a curve in the fabric mask he wore that he was smiling. Sorry, Naruto, but they have to get back to work. He looked down the street. You did a number on this street. Naruto sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. It wasn't all me. Honest, Kiba did some of it. Really? From most of the stories I've heard, it was you. Naruto thought for a moment. Ask the cabbage merchant, he said, remembering the man's lamentations about his produce. I will. If there is misinformation, I should clear it. What happened, Kakashi-sensei? The man now identified as Kakashi turned toward Sakura. Well, the cat Tora was chased down this street. The damage you three are fixing was caused by Naruto. Kakashi noticed Naruto was getting upset. Possibly Kiba as well. The three turned down the street and looked at the mess. They turned back with varying reactions. Sasuke was judging, Sakura angry, and Shino just raised an eyebrow. Naruto laughed nervously. So I just turned my mission in just a few minutes ago. How'd you guys get it so quickly? Kakashi laughed. Honestly want to know. The four stared at him in confusion. The request came when a Chunin noticed your team chasing Tora toward the merchant quarter. Sakura turned toward Naruto, but didn't expect the pained look on his face. Naruto looked at the others, then smiled. Well, I'll let you guys get back to work, he said before running off. What was that? Sakura wondered aloud. Perhaps Naruto is upset that he proved the general populace's belief true, Shino offered. Sasuke just grunted and began to go back to work. Sakura took a chance. Hey Sasuke, need any help? Not from you, he stated bluntly. Go take care of the stupid cabbages, that should be light enough for you. Shino walked after Sasuke as Kakashi sighed and pulled out an orange book. Glad that at least Sasuke respected Shino. If only these wonderful books could help me with Sakura and Sasuke to be more team-oriented. Shino turned back towards Sakura. Sakura, although the other things do need to be done, perhaps it is best if you join us in our current task. Sakura smiled. Okay, she said, running over to Sasuke and Shino. Kakashi let out a sigh, while Sasuke shot a glare at Shino, as Sakura began to talk rapidly. Shino stared straight ahead. Sasuke, I have a strange question. Sasuke only grunted, not really wanting to talk. You like quiet girls, right? Sakura was strangely quiet. Sasuke glanced back at Sakura, then at Shino and grunted affirmatively. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at the sudden silence that followed. Shino had constantly been surprising him the last couple days. He silently approved of Shino's manipulation tactics of his teammates, and turned his attention to his book. Later that night, Naruto groaned and fell back on the ground. This is so unfair. They had spent the last 6 hours training with Hinata and Kiba performing stealth training, or advanced hide and seek. Hinata and Kiba were good at the seek part, and they were almost as good as Naruto at the hide part. However, Naruto was terrible at the seek. A person materialized over Naruto. Naruto looked up at the frustrated Kurenai. Despite all of her teaching and advice, Naruto wasn't able to find either Kiba or Hinata. She sighed and pinched the bridge of her nose. Kiba, Hinata, come on out now. We can call training here and go on to the mission. Kiba and Hinata seemed to appear out of thin air moments afterwards. Naruto sat up suddenly, very excited. All right. A mission. Kurenai laughed and shook her head. Sorry, Naruto, I don't think you're going to be useful tonight. But then again, we're not really going to find anything. Why? We're just looking through a house. Some clan leaders want to use it, but they want the place scoped out. So what's the catch? Well, it's supposed to be haunted. Before Kurenai could say anything else, she was interrupted. Haunted? Naruto shouted. The three others turned and stared at him. Naruto, please tell me you're not scared of ghosts. Of course I am. Aren't you? You can't fight a ghost. Kurenai groaned while Kiba laughed. Tonight was going to be a long night. Kurenai glanced at her watch. She breathed a sigh of relief, seeing that it hadn't been 5 minutes like it felt, only half a minute, but if Naruto didn't gather his nerve soon, they'd never get into the house. Kurenai took another glance about the entrance, but just like their first perimeter search, they found nothing. She sighed again, wondering why she convinced herself Naruto had to take point to get over his fears. It had been bad enough when the grieving angel statue had scared Naruto, and the combined strength of Kiba and Kurenai had to drag the frightened ninja back to see that it was just a statue. All thoughts were interrupted as the least patient member lost it. "Just get in there already!" Kiba shouted as he kicked Naruto in the rear as hard as he possibly could. Naruto cried out in pain and was thrust through the unlocked door, taking the door with him and crashing to the ground. Naruto groaned and looked up. Well, he fumbled out looking inside. He was greeted with a long hallway with several doors on the sides. The only light entering the place was coming from the porch light that Kurenai had lit when they arrived. The flames from the lantern flickering, giving the already eerie room an even creepier look. Kurenai stepped over Naruto and looked at the floor. "Looks like no one's come through here in a long time." She turned toward the blonde as she took out a small flashlight and said, "Seems like you don't have to worry, no footprints means nothing's here." "Why would that matter?" Naruto asked, shivering, and not because it was cold out. A ghost wouldn't leave footprints. Though it was hard for them to see, a loud smack was heard as Kurenai introduced her palm to her forehead. "Boy, what's in you is far scarier than anything in here." Kiba laughed as he walked around the now standing Naruto. "Idiot," he said. "There's no such thing as ghosts." "Keep telling yourself that," Naruto sniped back as Hinata began to inch around him. The four began walking into the old house. A few steps and Kiba stepped on a creaky floorboard, and the resulting noise made Naruto cry out. "Really, Naruto?" Kurenai groaned. An audible gulp was heard from Naruto as he slowly began moving forward again. Kurenai led them to the first door and saw that it went to a staircase. She sighed and turned around. "Okay, there's 2 floors, we'll split up." "No!" Naruto shouted. Everyone stopped and stared at him. "That's how they get you," he explained in a terrified whisper. Kurenai refused to let her hand smack her forehead again. It was getting sore. "There's nothing here, just some old stories, but we do need to check the place out." So, she weighed her own options. Despite her trying not to think of Naruto as the Kyuubi, she still didn't want to be left with the fox boy, and she had already had a chat with Hinata earlier that day, so that left Kiba. "Kiba, you're with me upstairs, Hinata, you're with Naruto downstairs." She chose to ignore Naruto's complaints and led Kiba upstairs. Kiba grumbled as the stairs creaked with every step. Kurenai turned toward him when she reached the top step. "Is there a problem, Kiba?" "If I didn't know better, I'd say you're trying to set those 2 up." "Is there something wrong with letting a woman be with the man she admires?" "No, it's just—" "Why, Kiba," Kurenai said, drawing the name out in mock pity, "you sound like you are jealous. A genjutsu master would be able to notice the signs, even in this low light: the stiffening of the spine, the moment of hesitation in breath, the slight widening of eyes, all signs of discomfort." Unfortunately for Kiba, Kurenai was a genjutsu master. "Oh," she said in realization, "this will be interesting." Meanwhile, Hinata was clueless as what to do. This was a side of Naruto she had never seen before. She tried to speak up, but she was afraid her soft voice, which very rarely got that much above a whisper, would only serve to frighten the terrified blonde. Naruto's hand shakily reached up to the first door, and with a sudden movement jerked the door open. There was almost no light in the room, but from the moonlight coming through the window they could see this had been a living room. Some furniture was still lying around in the room. Naruto let out a sigh of relief, seeing nothing supernatural. He entered the room and began checking under the chairs and the couch for anything strange. Hinata began as she tried to find words to speak. Naruto turned around at her voice and let out a shout, taking a step back and tripping over a chair and falling on the ground. Hinata ran up to him. "Are you okay?" she said, worry helping her form a complete sentence. Look," Naruto said, pointing at the wall. Hinata turned around and saw a drawing of a very large figure, almost like a child's drawing. It was thin and stick figure-like. The black, almost slender figure towered over the 2 of them, his feet starting on the ground and went up to almost the ceiling, where his body began and folded over the room, several arms stretching out across the ceiling. Hinata looked away from the figure back to the wall, which was heavily graffitied. Words were carved in but were written so poorly and over each other as to make reading almost impossible. She looked back at Naruto. It's just some." Naruto shook his head. "This is just like the stories the caretakers told me." Hinata stared at him for a while, trying to make sense of what he just said. Naruto got up and dusted off the seat of his pants. He saw her confusion. "The caretakers at the orphanage told me ghost stories when I lived there." "Why?" she asked. "To make me behave," he said sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head, his eyes never straying far from the drawing. They'd tell me ghost stories before locking me in for the night. Hinata wasn't sure if he had meant what he had said, or if he had meant tucking instead of locking, but instead of interrupting she let him continue. They'd tell me stories of a tall thin man. He'd come and take misbehaving brats who no one wanted, and sometimes if a kid was bad enough he'd take them from their parents. Those aren't real stories. He chuckled nervously. Well, I suppose they wouldn't be worrying for you. You're a nice person. She blushed and shook her head. That's not why. Really? Even if they were true, I'd have you guys to protect me, right? Hinata began to blush furiously as she realized two things. One being what she just said, the second being that she had just said 2 whole sentences to Naruto. Despite their current situation, she was proud of herself. Naruto thought for a moment, and he smiled and put his hand on his arm and flexed. Well, in that case I should be brave in case tall, thin, and Slendy shows up to take you, right? Hinata blushed even deeper and nodded barely. Okay, Naruto shouted. On to the next room. He took 3 steps and his leg fell through a set of rotten floorboards. All the color drained from the young ninja's face. The bad ghost is going to eat me, he screamed, struggling against the rotten wood. Kiba and Kurenai both turned toward the stairs as they heard Naruto scream. Kurenai sighed. We've got to break that fear somehow. She turned back to Kiba, who was still upset. Okay, so it seems like you've got some dirt to tell me. Kiba growled and sulked over to the first room and opened it up. What's there to tell? He growled. I'm a genjutsu master, Kiba. I can read you like an open book. You like Hinata? She said softly, using the soft edge in her words to try to calm the boy. I don't want to talk about it, he said, going to the next room after deciding that the first one was clear. Why? This is somewhat important, Kiba. Kiba whirled around and growled, cause she's got no interest for anyone who's not that dumb ugly blonde. Kurenai sighed and walked into the room. She took a quick glance about and sat down in a chair. Sit down, Kiba. Akamaru jumped out of Kiba's sweater and trotted into the room, but Kiba folded his arms. Shouldn't we be checking the house? There's nothing here, she raised an eyebrow, unless you believe in ghosts as well. Kiba sat down grumbling. Then why are we here? Cause someone needs to let them know it is safe, Kurenai said with a sigh. At least we're getting paid. Why do you have Naruto and Hinata team up? Kiba asked. Actually, I thought now would be a good time for us to have a one-on-one talk, Kurenai told him. Kiba began to pet Akamaru as his partner crawled in his lap. About what? The fight you and Naruto had in the woods. I am actually glad that you 3 pulled together to work with each other. Yeah, Hinata said the same thing. Does that bother you? He stopped petting Akamaru for a half second. Most would have missed the sign of agitation, but Kurenai spotted it. Not really. Naruto's lucky, huh? Well, obviously, Kiba said. Stupid dunce doesn't even know how good he has it. Kurenai nodded. Most men would kill to have a girl pay that much attention to them. I don't get it, Kiba continued. He's so stupid, why would she have an interest in him? She's very pretty. Yeah, she is, Kiba said before the words passed through the filter that he normally sent them through. Kurenai smiled. The boy in front of her hadn't even realized what he had said. The smile quickly vanished as she realized that it could spell problems later on, but that bridge would be burned when they came to it. To her surprise, Kiba started steering the conversation in a more comfortable line of conversation. I have a question, he said slowly, unsure. About? Kiba looked her in the eyes and asked, what do you think of us? She leaned back in the chair rapidly thinking. What about exactly? Akamaru jumped out of Kiba's lap and started going about the room. Kiba shrugged. Like, how do you see the team working out? What about Naruto? Or Hinata? I'd also like an honest opinion of me. Kurenai stared at Kiba for a moment, making him very uncomfortable in the dead silence of the empty house. The thing I can see this team doing very well is a guard unit. With your nose and Akamaru's senses, with Hinata's eyes, you guys can sense an enemy coming from a distance away. What about Naruto? Naruto, Kurenai tried to think of a use for the knucklehead, can be the brute force unit of the 3 of you. I could do that, Kiba pointed out. But your nose is very important for the unit, she pointed out. We can't lose that. I see, Kiba said slowly. So Naruto is what? Kibble? Kiba wondered. What about us individually? Well, you and Naruto want to be the leader of the team, but Naruto doesn't have that potential yet. You make a much better leader so far, but she stressed it to make sure he was paying attention. You can't lead them yet. The look on Kiba's face told her she needed to explain further. You can't just force them. You have to be willing to work into that position. Kiba slowly nodded. Now I'll let you know what I think about you. You are a typical male, you understand what you're supposed to do, but when you get an excuse to cut loose you do. Not always a bad thing though, those who don't tend to develop unique habits, she said, wincing, trying to keep a particular shade of green out of her mind. She looked up at Kiba, whose brow was furrowed, and glancing at Akamaru, who was whining. She shook her head. Just make sure you have something you can do to relieve your stress between missions. That's not training, okay? He nodded. Good, now you wanted my opinion on everyone, right? Well, my opinion on Hinata is that she's a very sweet girl, a little too innocent for a ninja. But she's got a lot on her plate. There was a very long pause as she thought about what she could say without fear. And Naruto? He's the container of the fox and holds inside of him the greatest disaster that ever befell Konoha. The thing that took away my friends and teammate. Got a lot of potential, and maybe if he learns to focus, and has you and Hinata behind him, he just may reach his goal. So, Kiba jumped and looked back. Sounds like they're done downstairs. Kurenai focused for a moment, and heard a single pair of footsteps, but didn't get up to call out to the owner. Kiba laughed as the single pair went past their room and went into the next. Well, seems like Naruto ran off scared. Kurenai frowned. I know he's scared, but she paused as she heard the footsteps again leading into another room. There's only one set of footsteps. Those should probably check. I don't want Hinata wandering about her by herself. You're so sure that Naruto ran away scared? I'd bet on it. There was a huge commotion as another set of footprints came running up the stairs. Kurenai-sensei. Kurenai looked at Kiba, who held up his hands. We didn't shake on it. Naruto burst into the room, Hinata right behind him. Kurenai-sensei, are you done? Not quite, but I'm glad you two came up to help. I was having a good conversation with Kiba. We didn't come to help. But didn't you just start checking the other rooms? No, we just came up, Naruto said, turning toward Hinata, who nodded. Then they heard the footsteps again. Kurenai quickly counted all the heads in the room. 3 genin, 1 dog, and 1 jonin. Everyone was accounted for. She remembered the shadow clone jutsu and looked at Naruto, but his wide-eyed terror told them that it wasn't a prank. She looked at Kiba. Smell? Nothing but dust. Byakugan? Hinata made several hand signs and the veins around her eyes bulged. Her hands began to shake. There's no one there. Kurenai stepped outside, her keen senses telling her exactly where what should have been a person, but in the dark there was nothing. Her hand began to drift upward as she began to rack her brain for any sealing jutsus that she knew in order to combat what shouldn't exist when a cry came out. Kagebushin no Jutsu. From the street, a loud creaking could be heard as would strain to contain mass it wasn't designed to hold in place. The sound of glass breaking startled people passing by as they returned home from late dinners and working long hours. Cries of pain also began to rise as the first of many orange-clad highly visible ninja began to flow out the windows and met with the ground outside. The flood of orange began to grow as wood began to break and more orange 13-year-olds began flowing out of the house. With a last heave the walls of the house gave way as a deluge of clones came pouring out, and with a noise that frightened the entire neighborhood the house finally gave up and collapsed into its foundations. Kiba scrambled through the clones, viciously swiping at them as he struggled to find the Hyuga girl. Hinata! He cried out as he spotted a rather dull-looking jacket in the middle of all the blinding orange. He found her mumbling incoherently, and her face a color of red that could only have existed on her. Kiba turned to the clone lying on top of her and grabbed him by collar. What are you doing, idiot? He shouted before punching him as hard as he could, hoping that the real one would be able to feel it. Kurenai, several dozen of clones away, grabbed the nearest Naruto. How on earth were shadow clones supposed to fight a ghost? She shouted before slapping him hard enough that all the other clones flinched. She sighed and ran a hand through her hair as she looked at what had formerly been a house. There's no way the Hokage will be happy about this. She stood up, stomping on several Naruto clones in order to find solid ground underneath. Well, someone is going to have to report this. Kiba, Hinata! She called out, getting a weak response from Kiba. You two are dismissed. Naruto! Every clone in hearing distance responded with a deafening sound, and Kurenai began to feel a headache coming on. You are to clean up this mess. You made it, you deal with it. There were cries of protest, and before they could build up, Kurenai ran through a very quick set of hand signs and the voices of the many Naruto were silenced in a genjutsu. I said you are to clean this up. It wouldn't be fair to the other two to make them do this, And I'm going to have enough paperwork today after this debacle, she groaned and wondered if it was too late to decline teaching these three further, or if it was too early to retire. Hinata began to regain control of her swirling emotions and she realized she was leaning against Kiba. She also realized they left Naruto alone in what remained of the place that terrified him. She stood on her own 2 feet. You okay? Kiba asked. Hinata looked back and brought her fingers to her lips. Shouldn't we help Naruto? Hinata glanced at Kiba. She saw him roll her eyes and she felt her heart sink. Kiba waved it off. He's fine. But he has to. Hinata, what on earth could we do anyways? We can't help him. Hinata's eyes went wide as she realized that he was right, she'd be useless. She had to look away and suddenly the street was very interesting. She jumped as she felt a hand on her arm. Kiba waited till she looked him in the eyes. Is something wrong? Was it that obvious? And no. It's fine, she said, shaking her head furiously. I have to go home. I'll see you tomorrow, she said. Hinata, do you? He paused as she quickly ran off. He sighed. Do you want me to walk you home? He said to the air where she had been. Akamaru whined from Kiba's jacket. Yeah, that could have gone better. Hinata ran off toward her home, but before she got close to her home she stopped and caught her breath. She slowly began to walk toward the gates to her home. Running would not be tolerated by her family. It was disgraceful to be in rush. Hinata passed through the main gate to her home and looked across the compound. She hung her head seeing that no one came to greet her. She wistfully looked back on the days her sister was glad to see her, before she had begun training with her father. She barely remembered her mother looking at her as she walked into the compound. She missed those days before she knew what the words useless and weak meant. She shook her head, refusing to let her memories get the best of her. She was a Kunoichi, and ghosts of the past weren't to affect Kunoichi, let alone a Hyuga. As she wandered through the house toward her room she heard a few of the servants begin to talk about her. Not openly of course, but in whispers. The servants were very skilled at not being seen by the people walking through the house, and their whispers seemed to come from the walls themselves. There she goes. Hinata winced as she heard the whispers beginning. No one dared speak aloud, only a few knew how her father really felt about her and didn't dare risk his ire, but they still looked at her like the oddity she was. Ah, it's Hayashi's daughter. Hinata's lips twisted into a deep frown. She wanted to be viewed as Hinata Hyuga, a member of the proud Hyuga clan and not the daughter of some man. She didn't compare to him in any way. He was cold, calculating, and strong. She unfortunately was a kind and compassionate girl, and was a polar opposite of any of the clan heads. Her sister won the other day. Hinata's shoulders slumped in shame. Her younger sister had beaten her yet again. Her sister was much more talented than Hinata, anyone watching them spar could see that. A long time ago, Hinata had been even with Hanabi. However, when their father noticed that Hanabi had more talent he began to train her, and left Hinata alone. Too bad Niji can't be the heir. Hinata instinctively cringed. Niji, her cousin, was everything the Hyuga clan was supposed to be. He was strong, he was talented, he was proud, and more than anything else, he was cold. She bore him no ill will, but she was afraid of him. Nothing escaped his eyes, and he knew which buttons to push to inflict emotional pain on her. And he enjoyed pushing those buttons. She hasn't started the advanced Jukin training? Hinata fought back tears. Most got through the basic Jukin training before graduating from the academy, however Hinata had no talent for it. She still wasn't done learning the basics. It didn't help that her instructors didn't care. They showed her the forms and then let her practice. Not like how it had used to be with her father. I heard she's going to become one of us, and her sister will remain main house. Hinata began to feel her hands go numb, and her typical graceful walk began to become less graceful and much faster as she began to quickly walk through the halls of her own home. She began to rush to get to the safety and privacy of her room. As she neared her father's study in the center of the house she slowed her walk. She did not want to get yelled at for her disgraceful haste. Sir, she heard a voice say from the study, your daughter was on 2 missions today, one to catch the cat Tora and another to check out what's been called the Yuma house. The happenings of such small trivial matters do not matter to me, she heard her father say. Yes, sir, sorry, sir. Hinata lost the energy to run. She resignedly continued her slow walk through her haunting house. Naruto reached up and turned off his alarm before it went off. He hadn't gotten much sleep after spending the entire night at Haunted House cleaning it up. It hadn't been bad after he had accidentally destroyed the house, But when he realized he couldn't find that creepy statue anymore, he started working a whole lot faster. He sat up and rubbed his shoulders. To his surprise, they didn't hurt. He could have sworn he had strained them the night before. He sighed. At least there are some benefits to having Fuzzy inside me, he thought to himself as he got up to start boiling water. After eating a hearty, but not so healthy, dose of ramen, Naruto went to go shower. He went into the bathroom and closed the door. He waits for bratty unwanted children like you. Hiding in plain sight and waiting to take you away and devour you, away from all your friends. Naruto gulped as he remembered the stories his caretakers told him. He looked at the shower curtain that prevented him from seeing what was behind it. He could imagine a faceless tall creature waiting to grab him, choke him, tear into him and rip him apart. He quickly reached up and yanked the curtain back and breathed a sigh of relief when there was nothing behind it. Of course there isn't. It's all made up, it's all made up. Repeating that like a mantra, he went in and prepared for the day. After the shower, he scrambled about looking for clean clothes that he could use. He hadn't had a chance to clean his apartment since Kurenai had visited. He secretly wanted her to come by again. It had been nice having her over. He didn't think she would. He could tell how uncomfortable she was around him. He was very aware of a fake smile when he saw one. He shook his head to clear thoughts that he couldn't quite afford to have. He finished getting dressed and loaded himself down with kunai and shuriken. After gearing himself up, he decided that yes, he did want another ramen. 5 instant cups of ramen later, he looked at the time. Realizing that he was about to be late, he bolted out the door. Running to the Hokage's tower. He saw Kurenai standing in front looking like she did not want to be up this morning. The details of that, however, were lost on the fox boy who was unused to social interaction. Instead of being quiet like most people would be in the morning, he shouted, "Hey! Kurenai-sensei! Think we'll get an Omyo mission today?" Kurenai smiled at him, the strain of keeping it there evident by the tightness around the lips. For the briefest of moments she glared at him before closing her eyes. "Unlikely, as we've only done 2 missions so far and both have resulted in massive property damage." Naruto's shoulders slumped and he groaned, "Come on. These are stupid kiddie missions." "Naruto, you are a kid." "No. I'm not," Naruto said proudly, and he could see Kurenai growing frustrated as she rubbed her forehead. "The moment I got this headband I was acknowledged as an adult by Irika-sensei. And I'm going to prove that I am one." Kurenai stood still for a moment, and Naruto took some small victory after realizing he had struck a chord in her. She looked at him, not bothering to hide the shock on her face. She smiled grimly and began. Naruto, the softness with which she said his name made the boy jump. It seemed even to surprise her as stopped as well. She continued, "Don't grow up too quickly, okay?" The kindness in her voice stopped all thought processes in the fox child's brain. When it finally restarted, all he could say was, "Huh?" She sighed and motioned for him to sit down. "Listen, when I was..." They both jumped when another voice cried out, "Kurenai-sensei! We're here!" The two looked at Kiba and Hinata, who were yet a ways off. Kiba was waving and had a great big grin on her face. Kurenai groaned and rubbed her temples. It was too early for this. Naruto couldn't help but smile at realizing part of her discomfort this morning wasn't him, but that his teacher was not a morning person. "Good morning," she intoned, her actions and her voice signifying anything but a good morning. "Gee, good morning, Kurenai-sensei," Hinata said quietly when she got close. Kurenai smiled at her. Her smile was broken, however, when Kiba almost just as loudly as before asked, "Hey, Kurenai-sensei, think we'll get an Omyo mission today?" Naruto almost smiled at Kurenai's frustrations but reined it in, not wanting to upset her. She stood up and said, "Probably not, but let's go find out. Shall we?" Naruto walked into the Hokage's office and saw him sitting behind a desk staring incredulously at a report. Irika, who was on the professor's right, had a look on his face that Naruto had only seen during his most brilliant pranks. Naruto waved at the two, comfortable in the fact that no one could possibly prank Irika with the same skill as him. Elsewhere, Genin was about to sneeze. He thought about stifling it, but decided it was too troublesome. His female companion complained, "Cover your mouth." Naruto greeted 2 of the handful of people who treated him kindly with a very large grin on his face. "Hey, old man. Hey, Irika-sensei. Good morning." "Naruto," Kurenai scolded. The Hokage chuckled mirthfully. "Good morning, Naruto. I just finished reading your sensei's reports of the mission last night. The entire house, huh?" Naruto deflated at that. Panicked," Naruto said, wondering if his voice sounded similar to Hinata's. The Hokage stood up and picked up a scroll and walked around the desk. Well, I suppose if things like the Bju exist, then maybe ghosts do too. Bju? Naruto repeated. The tailed beasts, the one that attacked us 13 years ago, was one of them. Though that's beside the point. This is for you. Naruto took the skull and unfurled it. A D-rank mission? The house that you destroyed was going to be rebuilt. Since you took care of the deconstruction last night, you should get paid for that as well. Naruto smiled as he counted out how many bowls of ramen he could buy with that. Awesome! Kurenai wasn't sure what was harder to believe, that Naruto was rewarded for massive property damage, or that the Hokage just admitted the chance that ghosts could exist. The Hokage sat back down and lifted a clipboard. Well, here are the missions available today that we feel your team should handle. An elderly couple needs help moving. A Jonin is going to be away on a mission today and needs someone to watch their kid. Some complaints have arisen from the women's bathhouse. The Inuzuka's dogs need to be walked. What? Kiba shouted, silencing the Hokage and surprising the others. My mom told me I was supposed to do that. Iruka smiled. Well, your mother is probably giving us the job so you can work elsewhere. Kurenai-sensei, can we please do that one? I don't like letting others walk the dogs. Kurenai nodded. Personally, she wanted to take care of the bathhouse, but given Kiba and Naruto's property damage record, she was afraid to. At least Kiba had experience walking the dogs. We'll take that one if you don't mind, sir. Very well, he said, holding out the scroll for Kurenai to take scroll. Kurenai walked up to his desk and took the scroll. Her trained eye noticing the hints of smeared ink on the scroll. She chuckled, realizing that the Hokage must have written the scroll quickly, possibly so that her team could take the mission. She turned towards students. Kurenai asked the feral one, would now work for taking the dogs out? Should be okay. Right, Akamaru? Upon hearing the affirmative bark, Kurenai began to issue commands. Very well, let's head over now. Hopefully we can finish before lunch and spend the rest of the day training. Kurenai, a moment? Iruka said, standing up. Naruto and the others looked back. Naruto noticed a look in the Hokage's eye that was similar to the one he had the time he had hidden a bunch of orange books from the Sarutobi's personal library. Naruto realized that there was no saying no to this. When Kiba spoke up, Naruto realized that Kiba had also realized this. I can show them where to go. Kurenai looked back and raised an eyebrow at him. Kiba held up his hands and said, don't worry, I remember what you said last night. She nodded and said, very well, Kiba, show them the way. The three genin left the room and Kurenai sighed and turned around. Is there a problem? Probably a complaint about the damages. Maybe we should go somewhere else for this, Iruka said with a sigh. Kurenai thought for a moment. Definitely Naruto related. I haven't been unduly harsh on Naruto, have I? She wondered. I know a little place open down the way. I'll buy, Iruka offered. When she didn't respond, he asked, something wrong? She shook her head. Sorry, no, nothing's wrong. I just have the feeling I'm forgetting something. I think you're forgetting something too, Iruka commented. Kurenai frowned as she followed Iruka out. I wonder what he's heard. Iruka sighed as he and Kurenai were sitting in a bar. When you said a little place, I thought you meant like a cafe. Ever since the war, I stopped subscribing to the idea of too early or too late. Kurenai could tell by the look on Iruka's face that he didn't buy it in the least, but was willing to let it slide. She never was drunk in public. She enjoyed drinking, but didn't let it affect anything. In the ninja world, it didn't matter how ridiculous you were. If you got the job done, people respected you. A green spandex-clad man was brought to mind. She suddenly desperately needed a drink. As soon as they were seated, a waiter came up with a mixed drink for Kurenai. She pointedly ignored Iruka's raised eyebrow as she looked at the waitress. She knew her face, but couldn't quite place her name. She knew too many people whose names started with Ko. The waitress explained, courtesy of Taruko, he's trying a new drink. Kurenai nodded. Now that she had a voice to go with the face, she recognized Koami. She took a sip. Too much alcohol, not enough mixer. I'd like another though. Taruko said you liked your drinks harder, Koami explained with a smile that Kurenai could tell was practiced. Should I place your usual? Make it 2, Kurenai said for Iruka. Iruka nodded. She figured that he could have cared less about the food. He had more important things to get to. Kurenai had to suppress a frown and with an ease that she was proud of slipped on a disarming smile. As Iruka calmly began to ask the standard small-talk questions, she began to get a distinct feeling that he was going to make her sweat a while. Definitely a teacher, she thought grimly. Kiba led the way to his house, happily marching through the streets. He was getting paid to do what he did for fun whenever he could. That alone was enough to make him happy, But of course the fact that he was getting to do with a pretty girl made it 10 times better. It was really too bad about the idiot though. Kiba for a moment wondered if he should be nicer to him. He was supposed to be a member of his pack now. Not just the overall pack of Kona but a pack of Team 8. It was what was expected of him after all. Besides, he felt a little sorry for the guy. Sure, his mother was crazy, and his sister could be worse, but family was one of the most important treasures the dog boy had. Shouldn't he be nicer to Naruto since he had no clue what that was? Shaking his head as he went up to the door, he did his best to clear his head of ridiculous thoughts. He reached up to grip the door handle when it collapsed. All movement stopped, and Kiba realized how little he had been paying attention. Now that there was a sudden silence, he realized he had totally missed the barking from his sister's dogs. Who, he guessed, had been running interference for her. She was holding a stack of papers with pictures on them, while her mother was chasing her down. The kunai in his mother's hands was shining in the light cast from the outside, and Kiba understood why his sister was standing halfway in a jog. He looked past his mother and his sister to see his mother's canine partner, Kuramaru, a big black dog missing an eye and an ear, covering his snout with his paws. "Kiba," his mother said with some manner of shock on her face, "I thought you weren't coming home until tonight." He noticed that his mother still hadn't put away the kunai. "We took the dog walking mission, which you promised me," he said, stepping across the threshold and grabbing the door. "Find any prospects for Mom, Hana?" "Well, there's this businessman from Hana. Damn it, pup. I told you I'm not going to date anyone," his mother said, storming toward Hana, and the chase began again. Hinata stepped across the threshold. Should we stop them?" She was too confused at the scene to realize she only stuttered once. "Nah," Kiba said. Naruto laughed. "Well, in that case, do we get to Hana's?" 3 dogs came running back as Naruto crossed the threshold, no longer happily barking but snarling at Naruto, causing the blonde to stop talking and start taking steps back to put distance between him and the rapidly closing dogs. "Sit!" Kiba shouted, but the dogs didn't listen to him and continued charging. "Sit!" A rough voice shouted, "Stay!" The owner commanded when the dogs stopped moving. Naruto, seeing that he was now safe, turned to look at the owner of the voice. Kuramaru was standing now, glaring at the 3 dogs. Naruto's jaw hit the floor. "You can talk?" he asked, shouting. "Yes, Kit, I can." Kiba noticed the frown Naruto had on his face. "Kit?" "A fox pup," Kuramaru explained. "I know that," Kiba shouted indigently, "but you call everyone else a pup, why Kit for Naruto?" "He smells like a fox," Kuramaru said dismissively, rolling his head, and Naruto, whose eyes were focused on Kuramaru's snout, could imagine a human waving his hands as if to shoo the thoughts away. "That's why the triplets gunned after him. They don't like him." Kiba saw Naruto shrinking back. He frowned. He knew Naruto wasn't well liked by the village, any idiot could see that. He stomped his foot down, making Naruto and Hinata jump. "Well, they better get used to him. He's my teammate and part of my pack." Kuramaru chuckled. "Good to hear." Now he trailed off and got a happy grin. "What was that about taking us for a walk?" he asked, tail wagging. Kurenai couldn't help but stiffen as she sensed Irika getting down to business. "So what's your opinion of Team 8? He asked nonchalantly. She took a sip of her drink to make sure she had an answer before responding. She set the glass down, and it clinked loudly against the table. She winced at the sudden sound, and she realized just how nervous she was about this. She knew why, of course. The man in front of her had stuck his neck out for her to make sure she had a good team, and he expected the best out of her. He was one of the people who respected her, and had the ear of the Hokage. She also wasn't sure if he was regretting that at the moment. "I like them. They definitely have potential as a guardian unit. However," she thought grimly, thinking of all the property damage they had caused on D-ranked missions, "I wouldn't trust them with anything major yet." Irika chuckled. "Yeah, Sarutobi-san is of the same opinion right now." Kurenai did not fail to notice that Irika was using very familiar terms to refer to the man she only referred to as Hokage. "I'm sorry about the extra paperwork. It's actually not that bad this year. Usually there's quite a bit of reshuffling going on. We had lots of good students this year, and I'm proud of every single one of them." "Is he going to let me sweat forever?" Kurenai thought. "So," Irika said slowly, almost as if he knew what she was thinking. "How's Kiba handling the team?" Kurenai gave a small shrug. "He's doing okay. Problem is that he wants to be top dog and hasn't proven to the others that he can. I think he does have that potential, but it's a little early to tell. He's got a bit of that Inuzuka pack mentality. Unfortunately, that goes for the alpha female part of it as well." Oh? He's got a thing for Hinata, Kurenai explained. You sure that's pack mentality, and not him having a genuine interest? I suppose it could be, Kurenai said, nodding, though he didn't seem to have such a reaction before. Irika shook his head. I think it's just that he realizes he now has a chance. They're on the same team now, so he might have a legitimate interest. To be honest, as much as I think he'd be good for her, it probably doesn't matter. Hinata has another interest. Irika smiled. And how is Hinata? Kurenai smiled, but inwardly she was sweating. He must have missed his calling in the torture and interrogation unit. Kiba laughed as he saw Naruto struggling to hold onto 10 leashes. Kiba had decided to forego the things and instead walked among the 15 dogs he was in charge of as one of them. He had taken a few more to make sure that Hinata wasn't going to be pulled by her charges. All right, I'm ready. You guys good? He asked. Yeah. Let's do this, Naruto shouted, drowning out Hinata's calm and quiet affirmation. Right. Kiba barked, and the group started walking. Kiba smiled as he watched Akamaru at the front of the pack leading the group. The little white dog leading dogs anywhere from 2 to 5 times his size was slightly comical, but felt right to Kiba. Akamaru was the best partner he could ever ask for. It was natural he belonged in the front. Kiba felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up as the group of dogs he was in began to get agitated. He glanced about and began to notice hateful glares towards his group. He looked back and noticed Naruto struggling to keep his 10 dogs going in the same direction. Hinata, however, was also noticing the glares as well. She was staring somewhat sadly at Naruto, and Kiba began to notice that Naruto was the one who was receiving the glares. Seemingly blissfully unaware of them, Naruto put on a big grin when the dogs began to follow the path that he wanted them to go. Kiba reached down and scratched the ears of the biggest dog in his grouping. The dogs responded well to Kiba and began to relax, and Kiba let out a sigh. It was frustrating to see people reacting poorly to his teammate. Granted, his teammate was an idiot, but idiots are to be ignored, not hated. He shrugged. His teammates seemed to be unaware of how people were staring at them at the moment, and wasn't letting it affect him. In light of that, Kiba decided that it wasn't worth the effort at the moment. Kurenai smiled. Hinata is a very nice girl. It's too bad her chosen profession will require her to kill and soil her hands, but she'll be wonderful in a guardian unit as the one in close connections with and living packages. Irika nodded. She's very nice, though she'll have to get out of her shell a little in order to fulfill that role. That's mostly the fault of her family, Kurenai said, and Irika didn't fail to notice the slight growl in her voice. What do you mean? Irika asked with concern in his voice. What do you know about the Hyuga? Nothing much beyond what I teach in the class. Do you even know what her father looks like? Irika nodded. Of course, he's the head of the family. Lord Hokage often has meetings with. You know what he said when I met him? She said softly, but the anger in her voice was loud and clear. Irika stared for a moment, trying to think of how to respond, but she didn't wait for Irika to answer. He said that Hinata was loser. That the clan had no need for her cause she was weak. That she was useless. Kurenai saw something that she didn't see before. Irika was angry. She had seen him frustrated before, but never well and truly angry. She is not useless, Irika said, his voice barely above a whisper. She's smart, she puts her all into everything she does, he sighed and put his head in his hand. That explains so much. Kurenai sighed and shook her head. I know all that. And I'm going to make sure that this team can help her prove it to the world. Especially her father. Irika let out a long steady breath. Then looked Kurenai in the eyes, and suddenly she felt like she was in the academy. Here it comes, Kurenai thought as she took a sip of her drink. And Naruto? Kurenai's grimace showed for a brief second. Naruto tried his best to avoid looking past the dogs. On any side of him people were staring at him. They had been walking for only a few minutes, but he hated every second of it. Demon brat. Naruto put on a big smile, he didn't care. Don't look at it. Naruto's grip on the leashes wasn't out of sorrow or anger. He didn't care about their voices. He was just trying to keep a hold of the dogs. Well, hopefully he'll die soon. Naruto winced from the friction of the leashes. It was beginning to hurt his hands. Maybe he should have taken a few less dogs. The pain he was feeling had nothing to do with the words they were whispering. Can you believe that wretched thing actually thinks he has friends? What? What if my teammates? But Naruto was jolted out of his thoughts as one of the dogs in his grouping slipped away. Naruto dove after the dog's leash as it ran away. He felt the wind knocked out from himself as he hit the ground. And Naruto! Hinata shouted from behind him. Naruto smiled and looked at Hinata. I got him still, he said, holding up the end of the leash he had grabbed. He looked forward. 9 dogs were staring back at him. That, however, wasn't the issue. The issue was that all of them had an unusually hungry look in their eyes. Naruto tried to swallow a lump in his throat. The dogs must have sensed his fear because they suddenly charged him. Naruto ran for the hills screaming for help. Kiba! And Naruto needs help. Kiba looked back. Ah, that idiot! He said, chasing down the dogs, his pack joining him. I'll get them. Kurenai sighed. She paused for a long while before continuing, has potential. I could have told you that, Iruka said with some manner of spite behind it which was not lost on Kurenai. Is there a problem, Iruka? Let's see here. After the Tora fiasco, you seem to imply that the cost of the damages should come from Naruto, he said, holding up a single finger. Secondly, he said, adding another finger, you didn't clarify who did the damage during that whole thing. Everyone assumed it was all Naruto. It was thanks to Kakashi that we found out it wasn't. A cabbage merchant gave a rather scathing description of what Kiba had done during that mission. He added a third finger. And then, during the house incident last night, you had Naruto clean up the mess that the team made, by himself, I might add. He added a fourth finger, and Kurenai visibly cringed. Last of all, I heard from a source. What source? Kurenai asked. Not important. I heard that you weren't exactly helpful to Naruto during training yesterday. Kurenai sighed and nodded. I'll try to do better. Kurenai! I asked you to do this because I trusted you. I know, Kurenai said, looking up at Iruka, who jolted upright, seeing some tears in her eyes. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have volunteered to be a Jonin instructor. Especially Naruto. I don't hate him, I hate what's inside him. Iruka, you know my personal stake in that, right? The instructor frowned just slightly. Because of it, my teammate won't even look me in the eyes anymore. I want to be a good teacher. Honestly. I want to help Hinata and Kiba. But not Naruto, Iruka said, the bitterness in his voice apparent. I have trouble seeing him, and not the seal, Kurenai admitted painfully. Iruka sighed. Kurenai, he said, taking a moment to ensure he had her attention and that he knew what he wanted to say. My source, the one that told me that you weren't helping, he said with a sigh. He said you were the first one to not laugh at Naruto's dream. He also said that you were a nice person, but he was worried that I'd intentionally mess up Naruto's training. No, he said, he hadn't seen someone who faked smiling as much as he had. He said you looked sad. He also said that he liked his team and didn't want to switch cause he liked being on your team too. Kurenai frowned as she began to realize who Iruka's source was. Naruto, Iruka stated. Kurenai, you're the first person beside me to visit Naruto at his apartment. Even if you were faking it, you were also one of the first people to be nice to him. Kurenai sat there dumbfounded. At least, until she heard a familiar scream and barking coming from outside. She and Iruka ran outside and stared down the street. Iruka found his voice first, while Kurenai could only wonder in how much damage was being caused. Is Iruka started? Is that Kiba? Chasing Naruto? Naruto looked back and wondered how this had happened. He had dropped a leash, then began running from the dogs he was supposed to be walking. After he had gotten some distance between them, he had looked back, only to see Kiba leading the charge. Naruto cursed the fates as he dove down a familiar street. Fortunately, the merchants had closed down for the day and there were only a few stalls still open. Naruto dove through an alleyway and squeezed through a fence. Kiba was caught in the fence, snarling ferally. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief and turned around to come face to face with the one thing in the world he never wanted to see again. Tora the cat had escaped again. The cat wasn't happy to see him again either. Before she could attack, Naruto decided a deal with the devil couldn't be so bad. Help me escape, I'll help you escape. The world stopped for a moment before Tora began walking away. She stopped at a box near a fence and looked back at Naruto. She meowed before pushing the box away, revealing a space through the second fence. Maybe the cats weren't so bad after all. Later that day, 3 genin were chasing down a single cat. One reached up and hit a transmitter. Target is ahead, road dead ends into AT. This is it. Pink take right, dark take left. There were no complaints. They had already screwed this up enough. The 3 genin launched forward. The cat stopped at the T of the road looking left. The dark, foreboding ninja there sat there, ready to dive for her. She then looked right. There she saw a ready Kanochi waiting. The third one behind her allowed himself some measure of pride. They had this demonic cat caught. No matter which way she went, they were ready this time. To their horror, she went both left and right. Sasuke was faster than Sakura. His eyes, while not at their peak, were proving better than the clanless ninja. He managed to at least snag Tora's tail. He stood up. The Bushin had surprised them, but he had apparently grabbed the right one. Kakashi jumped down. Great job. You guys caught her and solved one of the mysteries as to how she escapes all the time. Sasuke let out a prideful HN before the cat went up in smoke. All four ninjas' eyes went wide while the Jonin thought, Kage Bushin? Hours after witnessing the event, Kurenai and Iruka finally found Naruto. Rather, they found Kiba, who had chased Naruto up a tree. Kiba was rolling on the ground laughing at Naruto, who was using words that he definitely didn't learn at the academy. Kiba! Kurenai shouted, getting the attention of not only her students, but also every dog at the base of the tree. Sensei! Help! Iruka responded first and loudest. What the hell do you think you're doing? 26 heads drooped abashed. Sorry, Iruka-sensei, I just… You what? Chased your teammate instead of helping him? What the hell happened to Inuzuka sticking with their pack? Iruka shouted, pointing at Kiba. Take that back! Kiba shouted, jumping up and pointing an accusing finger at Iruka. Why should I? Iruka said, folding his arms with a huff. I didn't abandon anyone. No, but you certainly aren't helping him. I was just playing around. Kurenai stepped in. Kiba, Naruto was in trouble and you should have helped. This wasn't a game, this was a mission. If this weren't a D-ranked mission, you'd be facing some heavy charges. What? The three ninja on the ground looked up at the confused speaker. Iruka sighed. Naruto, I know I covered this. Kurenai took a quick glance at Iruka before explaining, if something similar to this were to happen on a mission, think about what that would imply. Naruto stared dumbly for a moment before Kurenai continued, from any outside perspective, it'd seem like he was attacking you, Naruto. It would be interference with the mission and quite possibly indication that Kiba was a traitor. Oh. Okay, I get it, Kiba said nervously. It won't happen again. You do realize this is going to get put into a report, right? It's okay, Naruto shouted, jumping down from the tree. We get it, and Kiba didn't mean any harm. Iruka smiled. You sure, Naruto? There's some things we should be checking out. Naruto shook his head vehemently. It's fine. Okay, well then let's get the dogs back. I think they've gotten enough excitement for today. Iruka turned toward Kiba. You guys can walk them back, right? No more chasing? Kiba nodded. Good, me and Kurenai weren't quite finished yet. Kurenai suppressed her sigh and nodded. You kids go on ahead. I'll catch up to you at Kiba's. Yes, ma'am, Kiba said quickly. You okay, Naruto? Naruto smiled broadly. I'm fine. I just don't handle animals well. Kiba took a few of the leash dogs that Naruto had been responsible for, leaving Naruto with a small handful. Kurenai had to smile seeing Kiba bending over backwards to make up to Naruto. She wondered if Naruto knew how much trouble he had saved Kiba from. The two boys ran off to find their third teammate. Iruka turned toward Kurenai. Where were we going? Kurenai sighed. You had just pointed how highly Naruto thinks of me. He doesn't think highly of you, he likes you, there's a difference. Sounds terrifying. Considering how much Sarutobi likes him? Definitely. Kurenai sighed. I'll try to be a better teacher. But to be honest, this is my first group of genin. I'm not sure where to even start being a good teacher to Kiba or Hinata, let alone Naruto. Iruka stared at her for a moment. You guys have been on the mission for several hours already, correct? Yeah, Kurenai responded, confused. Do you have a training session scheduled for today? I was playing it by ear. That seems to be how Guy and Asuma do it. Very bad examples, Iruka commented. You want to be like Guy. He laughed as Kurenai realized she suddenly needed a drink, again. Tell you what, have lunch with your students, do a training session, then visit Naruto's place. I heard you ordered some kitchen utensils for Naruto, pick those up and drop by. How much does this guy know about what's going on in the village? Kurenai wondered. She sighed. Well, I guess I could try another stealth training session. How about chakra control? Naruto's terrible at it, and Hinata has quite a bit of talent there. Alright, it'd be a good intro into genjutsu. Iruka paled. You plan on teaching Naruto genjutsu? Kurenai sighed. It'd be a good idea, I think he does have talent for trickery. Iruka shook his head. Why oh why did I put Kohona's #1 prankster under the tatalogy of Kohona's mistress of genjutsu? Kurenai allowed herself to laugh at that. Iruka let out a sigh. Kurenai, I don't think you're a bad person, honestly. I'm just worried that you're not even trying to give Naruto the attention he really needs. He gave a half-hearted shrug. I tried to be something like a father figure to Naruto, but I don't think it took. Kurenai smiled. I don't think you can pull that off. Maybe a bungling uncle. He laughed, and Kurenai realized suddenly all the stress Iruka had piled on her was beginning to fade. I guess. I did my best though. That's all we can do, right? Kurenai said hopefully. Yeah, he said, I guess I do owe you an apology. You're new to teaching, and you've got some major burdens on you. I'll clear things up with the Hokage. I may have said some things. Kurenai felt the blood beginning to drain from her face. Relax, he's a just man. He wouldn't punish you without double-checking you deserved it. Even if his favorite genin is involved? Kurenai asked. Maybe we shouldn't find out, Iruka said with a shrug. I'll see you around, Kurenai. Kurenai sighed, a clan heir, a wild child, and a host of a demon who has the Hokage as the closest thing to a father figure he has. Why did I ask to take this job again? Kurenai, with practiced ease, shoved unnecessary thoughts to the back of her mind and put on a smiling face as she went to Kiba's home. She got there and was surprised to see that Kiba, along with most of the dogs, were passed out contentedly on the front yard. She watched the scene for a moment, Kiba's face one of pure bliss, and the various dogs who were happily laying in their backs sunning themselves. She felt a small desire to lay out in the sun somewhere as well. It just looked so comfortable right now. She shook her head and proceeded to go up to the door. Before she could knock, the door came blasting outward and she just barely avoided getting knocked down by the door and the orange blur that came out. Good job. But you got to use more control. A female voice shouted out to Kurenai's student. Sorry, Naruto said, sprawled out on the ground in front of the house. He rolled over onto his back and sat up. Seeing his teacher, he said quite loudly, Oh. Hi, Kurenai-sensei. Kurenai sighed and looked inside. Hinata was staring out the door with a cup of tea in her hands. Hana was sitting next to Hinata with a cup of tea in one hand and her other palm on her forehead. 3 dogs were all staring at Naruto, tails wagging. Some was standing there, hands on her hips and looking damn proud. When she noticed Kurenai, she grinned and grabbed Kurenai's hands. Thank you so much for taking our dogs on a walk. Kurenai was taken aback by how friendly Tsum was acting. It's no problem, it was a mission after. I gave Naruto a bonus for having fun with the dogs, and I showed him a chakra technique so Hatsan run faster for next time. Next time? Kurenai thought. No way, and she turned and looked back at Naruto and saw him sitting on the sidewalk outside the house with a grin spread ear to ear. Kurenai realized suddenly that Naruto had totally forgotten the horrors of the day and worse, might be willing to do it all again. Before she could lament fate more, Tsum hurriedly patted Kurenai on the back. Thank you again for taking the mission. You seem very happy, Kurenai said with a bit of confusion written on her face. It's the pheromones, Hana said from her spot on the table. All the dogs are emitting scents off being happy. They haven't been this relaxed in a long time. She and Kiba are both reacting to how the dogs are feeling right now. And you aren't because? My sense of smell has been hampered a little. All the sterilization chemicals I used to clean the veterinarian building hurt my nose. So I'm still sane. I see. Well, we have to report to the Hokage, then we'll have a training session. More stealth training? Naruto said with a groan. Nope, chakra control. Great. Tsum said. Naruto needs it. Hey. Iruka said that too, Kurenai admitted. Let's go get this meeting over quickly. Then we'll get lunch. Suddenly a new voice jumped in. Kurenai was surprised at how quickly the owner had gotten close to her. Lunch? Kurenai turned. Kiba, when did you wake up? Hinata followed her team away from the Hokage's tower. She wasn't sure, but she began to think her teacher was beginning to get desensitized to how the Hokage treated Naruto. She only imitated a goldfish for a half minute after the Hokage dismissed the damages from what had to been the most eventful dog-walking mission ever. Kurenai was leading the way with Naruto and Kiba right behind her. Kiba was laughing at Naruto and quite effectively pissing the blonde hyperball of energy off. Kiba had mastered the speed techniques that his mother had given Naruto and made sure to rub it in Naruto's face. They were so busy arguing with each other that they failed to notice Kurenai's grimace as one of her favorite bars closed their doors before they could arrive. Hinata, however, did notice, and she did have an idea why. Slam. Hinata jumped at the sound, and despite herself, she looked over toward her crush. He decided to tell a joke to Kiba. She only heard the tail end of the joke. Got any grapes? That made Kiba lol. Years of watching him let her catch on to nuances that most would miss while looking at Naruto. Slam. She jumped again as another door slammed. She looked over at the door to the pub that had closed its door. She cringed inside. Because of her family, she was never allowed in such low places, but she always wanted to go in once. She was beginning to see that she really didn't want to. Slam. Another door closed. The sound echoing in the street. Hinata glanced back one more time. She knew the doors weren't being closed for any other reason except him. He laughed loudly as he insulted Kiba. Her eyes weren't as good as some people in her clan, but she could still read Naruto well. She could hear the hollowness in the laugh. The fakeness of it. It was almost impossible to notice, but it was there. One had to want to pay attention to the blonde to notice it. Hinata wanted to get off the streets, find somewhere the four of them could just be alone and not have to deal with the stairs. Slam. Hinata jumped. The door was a lot closer this time. Kiba and Akamaru's heads jerked around to look at the bar, but Hinata stayed focused on Naruto. She watched him weather the insult with a big, albeit forced, smile. She wondered if she could ever be like that. Be happy despite hearing the doors slam. Slam. Hinata flinched as she remembered a training session she had undergone before. She was unable to perform to her father's expectations, so he ordered that they would make the training session more real. She remembered the pain she felt when her trainer hit her with fully powered Juken strikes hitting her. The pain as chakra laced her nerves, sending pain throughout her body. The numbing pins and needles that signified a useless limb. Her father's cold eyes as he stared at her from beyond the doors to the dojo. Slam. Hinata realized that they were wandering by Naruto's favorite place to eat. She looked down the street toward the ramen stand and then looked back at Kurenai. Her voice was so quiet that Naruto and Kiba failed to hear, but Kurenai snapped around like she had been hit, effectively killing what confidence Hinata had mustered to speak up. Hinata? Kurenai said, softening her voice and her facial expressions as much as possible. I am we. Kurenai smiled at her and walked behind the two boys who were still arguing and placed a hand in her shoulder. It's okay, take a deep breath then say what you're thinking. Hinata nodded and took a moment to think. I was wondering, we're looking for a place to eat, right? What about Ichiraku? Suddenly, the argument behind Kurenai stopped, and Naruto was staring at Kurenai with such a hopeful look on his face. Kurenai sighed and opened her mouth to say no, but then a loud clack could be heard as a door slammed shut. Kurenai looked past her students and saw another bar close their doors to the host of the demon and his team. You know what? I think Naruto does deserve a reward for having to go through the experience of Kiba chasing him like a wild animal. Kiba, does your family need to walk the dogs tomorrow too? Whatever they were arguing about was forgotten as Kiba started to laugh. Kurenai smiled at her students and began walking them toward the ramen stand that Naruto was so enamored with. She secretly was very thankful for Hinata's suggestion. She couldn't believe that all of these places were refusing service to them. They weren't even trying to give them an explanation, they just were closing their doors. Kurenai felt a frustration inside of her she hadn't known for years. She knew the owners of those restaurants. They weren't bad people, but that just made their actions even more inexcusable. As they piled into the ramen stand, Naruto shouted, Hey! Old man! One bowl of everything! Naruto! How's it going? The owner of the stand shouted back, taking no offense to being called old. It's going great. I got a mission this morning and got a new technique. Kurenai sat down at the bar next to Hinata. She was surprised to see this side of Naruto. It was different. She doubted others would notice, but she could tell by relaxed posture that Naruto never exhibited that he felt safer here. Didn't seem you liked the mission this morning, Kurenai pointed out with a slight smile tugging at the edges of her lips. Naruto folded his arms and looked past Hinata at Kurenai. Well, it all worked out, so I'm calling it good. Kurenai laughed. That's a very good way of looking at it. I thought it was fun, Kiba commented. These your teammates, Naruto? Yeah. This is my sensei, Kurenai, and my teammates, Hinata and Kiba. Well, good afternoon, I'm Tuchi. Greetings, Tuchi-san, can I order a miso ramen? Certainly, ma'am, and for you, sir? Beef, Kiba said boisterously as Akamaru barked. And for the pretty one? Hinata turned an extreme red that Kurenai had yet to see on her. She briefly wondered what new colors Hinata could come up with if Naruto had been the one to say that. I would like a miso ramen tea too. A shy one, huh? Probably a good thing. Naruto is loud enough for 5 people, I think, and has the appetite of 10. Kurenai smiled as Tsuchi turned away to complete the order. She turned toward her students, her sudden movement catching the attention of the 3 of them immediately. The smile on her face disappeared as she began to start teaching the students. Later, we're going to practice chakra control. I'm certain you know this, but what is chakra? It's what we use in jutsus, right? Yes, that's correct, Naruto, but I'm looking for a little more detail. And may I? Sensei? Go ahead, Hinata. See, chakra is the energy of all living things. Everything has some small amount of chakra, but shinobi like us can train ourselves to use it. That's what I was looking for, Kurenai said with a smile. Today, we're going to practice molding our chakra after lunch. But we already can do that, Kiba complained. Can't we learn something new? Oh, we will, but this is important. Naruto spoke up, setting down a bowl of ramen that Kurenai failed to notice had come. Why, we can do it, so we can move on now, right? Kurenai looked up at Tsuchi, who was now coming up with 2 bowls, and a young girl was behind him with 2 more. They put the bowls down in front of each of the students, and Naruto began digging into his dish. Kurenai turned back to the students and began. It's not too uncommon for some genin from clans to have more chakra than some chunins. However, a chunin normally will beat a genin who has more chakra than him. Do you know why? 'Cause he's got cooler moves? Naruto offered. 'Cause he's had more practice, right? Kiba said, offering his own idea. That's right, Kiba, although Naruto, your answer isn't completely wrong either. Good chakra control is gained by training and by practicing new techniques. The one with better chakra control starts off in a better position. I don't get it, Naruto stated, looking up at Kurenai expectantly. Tsuchi replaced another bowl of Naruto's. Kurenai began to wonder how fast could eat. Hesmoled at Naruto. Naruto, it's like this, you can go home and cook your own ramen, but it probably won't taste as good as mine. I've had years of practicing and perfecting my recipes to make sure they taste great. Oh. So cause the Chunin knows what spices to use so his ramen is better. Kurenai slapped her forehead. Well, yes, but replace spices with chakra control and you have a better idea. I see. Well, anyways, to continue, what is chakra exactly? After a few moments of quiet in the ramen stand, except for Naruto slurping up the ramen in front of him, Kurenai called on Hinata. It's a combination of physical energy and spiritual energy, Hinata shyly offered. That's right. What's that mean? Naruto asked. He said as he set down an empty bowl. 45 seconds, that's impressive, Kurenai thought as she observed Naruto. Kiba laughed. Naruto, were you gone that day? TT, that was the day he got Emizuki-sensei, Hinata timidly pointed out. That was a good one, Naruto said to himself with a chuckle that worried his current teacher. Kurenai sighed, as she realized she had to explain the basics of molding chakra to Naruto, and she doubted this would go easily. Tsuchi came up with another bowl. Water is really important in making ramen, but by itself it isn't ramen, and the spices and noodles are important as well, but they aren't ramen by themselves either. You have to put them together and cook them in order to get ramen. I get it, Naruto said, taking the bowl of the delicious food that seemed to contain all the secrets of the world within it. Ramen is the best food ever. Kurenai sighed. Anyways, today we're going to focus on our control of chakra. Specifically, we're going to practice molding it. How are we going to do that? Kiba asked as he took what was remaining in his bowl and put it in the ground for Akamaru to eat. We're going to practice a chakra meditation technique. The goal is that by the end of the day you won't need hand signs to do it. Why wouldn't we want to use hand signs? The other 3 at the ramen stand turned toward Tsuchi, who smiled at Naruto. Think of it like this, Naruto, some ramen stands make their noodles using a press and a knife to make the noodles, but I don't need either. If they had to use their knife for something else, they'd be out of luck, but I can let IM use the knife because I can make the noodles without it. Naruto smiled. So if I don't have to use hand signs to do my techniques, I can use my hands for something else. Kurenai spoke up. How on earth do you know all this? You weren't a ninja before you opened Airmen's stand, were you? Iruka comes here all the time with Naruto. I picked up a thing or two here and there over the years. Kurenai shook her head. I see Irika must be a good teacher if you can pick this up from snippets of lectures from him. He is, Tsuchi said, smiling, taking Naruto's empty bowl. I've heard a lot about him from Naruto, though I am curious as to if you're continuing the tradition teacher pays for students. I know Naruto doesn't always have the money to buy one bowl, let alone 10. Kurenai did a quick count of the bowls of ramen that had been shifting hands all night and suddenly paled. Tsuchi laughed. Don't worry about it, tonight's on the house. I'm glad to have seen Naruto come with some new friends. Thank you so much. She looked back at her students who were currently getting into a minor tiff over whether or not ramen was indeed the best food in the world. Seeing they were occupied, she waved Tsuchi closer. What was that about Naruto not having money? You don't know? I know what's in the folder on Naruto, haven't had a chance to get to know him too well personally yet. Tsuchi frowned. His apartment is broken into quite often. Sometimes they steal what he does own, other times they just vandalize the place. He doesn't complain though. I know it happens because my daughter, walked him home a night he stayed too late. She caught a few breaking in, they made off with the stipend he gets from the Hokage for not having parents. Kurenai frowned. She knew people didn't like Naruto, but today she was learning a lot more about her village than she wanted to. The worst part about it was that something like this should have been knowledge to her. Break-ins in a ninja village were major news because it meant that someone hadn't been paying enough attention. She thought back to her walk through the village looking for a restaurant for her team to eat and realized that she had no idea how bad Naruto had it. She sighed and leaned back. So that's why Irika is so concerned for him, he thought, looking over at Naruto who, while sounding angry at what Kiba was saying, had an ear-to-ear grin on his face. He doesn't seem too bothered by it. She then remembered Irika's words to her earlier that day. He said that he had never seen someone fake smile as much as him before. She narrowed her eyes as she scrutinized the scene before her. Naruto's clenched fist, his eyes not focusing on the person he was talking to, the strain in his voice, altogether they painted a picture that made his smile seem so forced. She suddenly had a strong desire to shift the location. Okay, you three. Let's get to training. We're burning daylight. We're going to training ground 8. She then turned and smiled her best smile at Tsuchi. Thanks for the food, I'm certain we'll be around again, but I'd like to drop by sometime so we can talk about my enigma of a student. I'll see you soon then, Tsuchi said, taking the bowls off the counter and wiping them down. He smiled at the group as they left and smiled. It was good to see that his favorite customer was doing okay. I sighed. If that Hyuga girl learns to cook, we're going to be in trouble. Tsuchi groaned as he scrubbed where Kiba spilled some of his ramen. I'm well aware. Naruto shifted under the gaze Kurenai was laying on him. He glanced quickly at the others. Kiba was taking Akamaru out of his jacket, who had been quite content in the confines of the disheveled boy's coat. Hinata was fidgeting with her fingers, stealing glances at Naruto, and Hisun passed him at Kiba, before looking back up at Kurenai. Kurenai was waiting for Kiba to settle Akamaru before continuing her explanation of what was to happen for training. Naruto's excitement had been quieted by Kurenai's glare. Granted, she was wearing a smile on her face, but he could feel what seemed like judgment being passed over them. He shivered and decided to look around the area. He was in a wooded area with a body of water nearby. There were a few trees with target dummies made out of bound grass that were obviously well used. The small clearing they were in wasn't big enough for a campsite, but the water looked very inviting, especially with the hot sun up in the air today. He was brought out of his reverie when Kurenai suddenly clapped. Okay team, so it's time to practice chakra control. Any ideas how we're going to do this? Leaf concentration? Kiba groaned while Akamaru barked in agreement. Leaf concentration? Naruto repeated. What's that? Remember what we had to do when you and I pranked Irika by rigging his desk to explode with ink? Oh yeah, Naruto laughed. Not my most creative, but his reaction was great. He paused for a moment. We have to do that boring exercise again? Kurenai laughed. No, we're going to be taking it a step higher now. I believe Hinata knows what we're going to be doing. Hinata jumped like she had been struck before shrinking back down and trying to hide herself in her coat. We're doing TT tree climbing? That's right, have you mastered this already? As somewhat, Hinata admitted. Great, would you mind demonstrating for us? Hinata took several deep breaths before going up to a tree. Naruto felt his eyes go wide as she began to walk up the tree completely parallel to the ground. That's awesome. Very good, Hinata. Normal genin wouldn't have such a mastery of this technique yet, she said with a genuine smile on her face. But the Hyuga are masters of chakra control, so that being said, Hinata, you have the choice of helping the others if you want. How can I help? Hinata said, her face red with embarrassment from the praise. Naruto wondered why she was so red. Is it really difficult? I mean, it didn't look like she was working so hard. Well, Kiba and Naruto need to learn this as well, so you can watch their chakra control if you'd like to help them. I see, can do that. Okay, you too, did you see what Hinata did? Yeah. It was amazing. How? Easy, Kiba said, forming a hand sign. She gathered her chakra to her feet, and he trailed off as he sprinted at the tree. Kiba. Kiba placed one foot on the tree, and as he tried to make the second step, he fell backward, landing painfully on his back. Kurenai sighed. I was going to warn you, too little chakra and you're going to fall, too much and you'll push yourself off the tree. Take your time, we can spend 4 hours on this today. All right. Naruto shouted before forming a hand seal and gathering up his chakra. Okay, so Hinata looked really tired after just a few moments of walking, so I gotta use a lot of chakra. He failed to hear Hinata's quiet warning as he rushed at the tree. He put one foot on the tree and was blasted back. He hit something hard, then landed in the water. He felt the hand grab him and lift him out of the water. He was surprised to see a concerned Kurenai looking at him. Are you okay? She asked quickly. He nodded. I think so. Anyone get to catch the headband of the missing Nin that hit me? Naruto realized he and Kurenai were about 20 feet away from the shoreline, and she was standing on the water. How are you doing that? Naruto said, eyes wide with awe. Kurenai, as always, responded with a smile on her face. This is something you learn with chakra control as well, she said, quickly jumping back to shore. And Naruto. Hinata started. Man. You flew like 30 feet. Hell. I think you even skipped on the water once. That, while ridiculously over-exaggerated, is what happens when you overcharge your tree climbing technique. And why you are required to have an instructor at all times when training. So he began nervously rubbing the back of his head. He winced as he ran his head over a bump. That's going to hurt later. How overpowered was that? Hinata put her fingers together. Oh, it's kinda hard to say, but somewhere over 1,000 times as much. Kurenai thought she heard her jaw drop, but quickly covered it up. That's impressive, Naruto, but for love of all things holy, please don't do that again. Yes. Ma'am. Okay, Kiba said, turning toward Hinata, so you can tell us how much we need? SS sorta. All right. Kiba said, flashing his teeth at Hinata. Tell me when I have enough. Me too, Naruto said as he watched Kurenai step back a few steps. Possibly to catch him again. He began to focus his chakra. Kiba, that's not enough, Hinata stated quietly. Then she gasped. And Naruto. That's way too much. Damn, how much is too much? Over 500 times. Hinata stated, shocked. Kiba, you stopped. Naruto's still using hundreds of times too much chakra. Man, how about now? Still too much. Kiba growled and began channeling again. Kiba, you're a little over. And then Naruto, you're still way over too. Naruto let some indecipherable noise come out of his throat before correcting, then saying, how about now? You're getting there, about half as much. Kiba, that should be enough. Okay. He shouted, running at the tree and making it 10 steps up the tree before he lost his concentration. What about me? Still too much. Now? It's a little high, BB, but I think you'll be fine. Naruto rushed up the tree, but lost concentration at only 5 steps. Ah man! He groaned. That's not bad, Hinata supplied, and then now you have to just hold it. Okay. Naruto shouted before running up the tree again. This time at step 6 he accidentally flared his chakra and blew himself off the tree, leaving a nice indent in the tree of his foot. He hit the ground, this time rolling to avoid hurting himself. He caught a glimpse of Kurenai behind them, looking off in the distance toward the center of the village with a frown on her face. He paused for a moment, before Kiba's frustrated groans caught his attention. Naruto turned around and looked up to see Akamaru make 15 steps up the tree, which given his small size meant he only made it halfway to Kiba's place, but it was better than Kiba's efforts. Or Naruto's for that matter. Naruto would not be outdone by yet another animal today. He focused his chakra and ran up the tree. He made it a bit farther than before. Falling, he didn't waste a beat before running up the tree again. His progress would have been encouraging if the small puppy with them wasn't beating almost all of them. Several hours later, Naruto hit the ground exhausted. This sucks. What am I doing wrong? Why you're molding why your chakra differently? What do you mean? WWL, Kiba and Akamaru are molding it and feeding our chakra to our feet. But you stopped that a while ago. I didn't say anything because, well. Naruto looked over where Hinata was looking. Kiba was growling frustrated as Akamaru trotted up the tree lazily. More importantly, Naruto could tell that he was progressing slightly better than Kiba. Naruto stood up. Okay, thanks Hinata. Why you're welcome. And time. Kurenai shouted. Good work you two, Akamaru barked. Sorry, 3, she amended. Akamaru. Quit laughing at me. Kiba shouted, pointing at his partner. Kurenai laughed. Kiba, animals have a greater affinity for chakra control than humans. Akamaru's always going to be a little better than you at control, but you'll always have 3 Topher times his chakra capacity minimum. Oh, Kiba said with all the wisdom he could muster at the moment. Now then, tomorrow, instead of a mission, we'll meet here, at 8 a.m. We'll continue this till lunch, and then we'll work on spars tomorrow. Kurenai began to worry upon seeing the looks Kiba and Naruto gave each other. Dismissed, Kurenai said, waving it off. Oh, and Naruto, how about you and I have our one and own session? Okay. Naruto said with a smile, all the fatigue he had been feeling magically disappearing. He hopped up next to Kurenai with a giant grin on his face. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. Seems like you could keep training, she commented. Naruto shrugged. I've trained longer than this when I was in the academy, he said, waving goodbye to Kiba and a slightly hesitant Hinata. Kurenai faced Naruto. We've spent a full 4 hours training. Naruto shrugged. I didn't have many friends. That Kurenai trailed off as several trains of thought converged. First was that she forced to recall how her student was treated earlier. The second thought was that she had been letting it happen, albeit indirectly. She shook her head and let out a sigh. That does seem to explain a few things, she said, beginning to walk the long way into the village. What do you mean? She sighed. You have noticed I haven't had you 3 spar yet, correct? I watched your scuffle with Kiba the other day. To be honest, I have no idea how you fought him to a draw. Your form was sloppy, while Kiba was using a clan style which is stronger than the academy stances. I'm not sure where to begin to help you. Oh. Kurenai shook her head. When it comes down to power, Kiba has the advantage under normal circumstances. Well then I'll just make sure it's never normal, Naruto declared, throwing his fist in the air. Kurenai half-heartedly smiled. That might be why you won, Naruto. Kiba knows when to give up. Well, I'm never gonna give up. Kurenai smiled. Anyways, what exactly was Sam teaching you? Well, she said it was similar to something called pushing, or something like that. I push chakra into my legs, and it makes me faster. It's called forcing, and do not practice that on your own. Got it? I don't want to find out. Yuma shot and ran through a wall. Naruto laughed. I don't have room to practice in my room anyways. Kurenai suppressed a wince as wondered if he felt safe leaving his room. Something wrong, sensei? Kurenai nearly jumped. She knew nothing visible had appeared, so how did this boy pick up on her discomfort? Nothing, I'm just thinking about how to properly train you 3, she let out a small smile. I got Irika a little mad at me for slacking on the training aspect. He shouldn't have, Naruto said, folding his arms. You're doing what you can. Kurenai couldn't help but smile seeing the boy. She couldn't honestly say she liked defending her. How long had it been since that happened? Most men avoided her. Being able to read a man too easily was terrifying for them. That may be, Naruto, but this is my first time teaching a team, and to be honest, I'm not always sure what I'm doing. I still need to figure out what your taijutsu training should be, for example. That's fine. Irika's had years to get his lectures down to an artistic form of boring. I bet he had to learn how to teach at first too. Kurenai let out a small chuckle. Anyways, isn't there some saying or something about teachers and students? A master teaches his students, and his students teach the master. Yeah, that one. I suppose so. Where did you hear it? Irika said it a couple times after he started being able to find me. Find you? I think the first time was when Irika chased me down after I replaced all of the old man's orange books with exploding ink tags. Kurenai was surprised that she wasn't surprised. I wonder if this is why Guy, Ebisu, Enko and the rest of the Jonin are so strange. They're so used to strangeness that they don't realize that they've gone the way of the world. She looked at the kid next to her and felt herself pale. And what the hell will I turn into when I'm done with him? There was also the time he caught me after I snuck a fish into every umbu's bed. Okay, so I still can be surprised. Naruto looked around the village. It had been a while since he had been in this section of the village. Hey, Kurenai-sensei, what are we doing over here? Kurenai, despite herself, looked around, and saw exactly why his student felt the need to ask. The street was almost empty, and the few people she saw were all glaring at the duo, and she had no illusions that it might have been her. I ordered something, and I figured now would be a good time to pick it up. She frowned. Might be a good idea for you to wait outside, wait for me to call you. Okay, he said calmer than she would have thought as she walked inside. Hello, I had an order for some kitchen supplies? She said as she walked up to the store owner and pulled out a receipt. Ah, yes, here you go. The store owner said, lifting 3 boxes onto the counter. Thank you, she said. Is there any additional charges? Nope, everything's all set. Great, Kurenai said. Naruto, would you help me carry these? Naruto walked in and looked around. He looked past Kurenai and saw the store owner. Kurenai frowned when Naruto ducked his head and didn't need to turn around to see what expression the man had. Naruto walked up to the boxes and formed his shadow clone technique. 2 more Narutos appeared in a plume of smoke and the 3 blondes grabbed the boxes. Thank you, Naruto, and thank you, sir, she said. She wondered if for a moment she had let a little bite in her words come out at the end, but in the end it didn't matter. As they stepped out, Kurenai turned toward one of the clones and reached for a box. I can carry at least one. I didn't want you to be my pack mule. The 3 clones looked at each other and shrugged. It's okay, the real one began. I mean, I get this awesome technique, so I might as well use it, right? Naruto, if anyone else were to use that technique to make more than a single clone beside the Hokage, they'd be shortening their lifespan considerably. So I'm awesome? Kurenai sighed. If you wish to take it that way, then yes. Naruto grinned ear to ear. So where are we taking these? To your place. Naruto smiled, then remembered the state he had left it in that morning. He shoved his box onto a shadow clone, then formed a new one. I'm going to go clean up. The place is a mess. Really? She said, even worse than last time? Well, not that. I'm teasing, Naruto, go on. We'll take our time. He saluted her happily and he ran off. It took her a few minutes to get Naruto's place, and she hoped that he had at least had enough time to throw his laundry in a basket somewhere. The clones opened the door and put the boxes on the ground next to the door. She looked about the room and had to admit she was impressed. The floor, which was barely visible last time she was there, was scuffed and scratched, but the counters and the table were clean. There were no dirty dishes and the clothes were put away. She did wonder where Naruto got all the posters that now adorn the walls, though. Naruto was currently trying to clean up some dirt from a potted plant that he had probably bumped off the windowsill in his rush to clean the place. But besides that, Kurenai had to admit she felt a little more comfortable accepting the domestic chore D-rank missions that her students hated. 2 of the 3 to be exact. I'm impressed. You can barely tell that this place was so bad a few days ago. She took a few sniffs of the air. I smell you even got an air freshener. Naruto smiled and rubbed the back of his head somewhat uncomfortably, shadow clones and all. Kurenai walked around the room. Something was off, but she knew Naruto couldn't perform Genjutsu, and it wasn't like she never used the technique to cover something before. She decided to ignore it for now. How have you been eating lately? Well, I think a little better. I told Tsuchi about what you said and he's been expanding the menu. Naruto, you need to learn to cook. Hey, when I'm Hokage I won't need to. What about during the missions? I am. She shrugged and sat down on the bed next to Naruto. It's not a big deal at the moment, just enough to make sure you can fend for yourself. Besides, cooking is cheaper than eating out. You'll save money that way. Tell you what, you show me that you can cook a meal and I'll teach you a jutsu. Fair trade? Okay, Naruto said, nodding. He frowned for a moment.